till you end up in prison. Can't wait till you end up in prison.
Victims and witnesses in criminal cases deserve to have their voices heard. It is our goal at every stage of the prosecution process to be aggressive and effective advocates for the victims of crime and the citizens of Maryland. We want to help victims and witnesses navigate the often perplexing criminal justice system. Information for victims and witnesses, including daily docket information, directions to court locations, and ways to contact our office, are provided to help you find the information that you need. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney.
Dear Scott D. Schellenberger, on November 29, 2010, Ms. Silisky obtained her first fraudulent protective order, which was dismissed at trial. On November 15, 2011, Ms. Susan Silisky Stengel obtained what was her second fraudulent protective order. 8 days later, on November 23, 2011, at the trial, Ms. Silisky Stengel provided altered evidence without advising the courts. 2 emails, neither of which averments were included with her sworn filing, which states, attached 2 emails. At trial, one presented was highlighted and emboldened. The other had the timestamp whited out, since the time was 5 hours beyond the court filing timestamp. The first altered email was brought to the attention of Judge Leo Ryan's chambers, who instructed Mr. Stengel take that to you, the state's attorney. During that same trial on November 23, 2011, Ms. Silisky, in cooperation with Bradford Carney, assisted in having Alison Meister Friedman commit multiple counts of perjury, as well. On November 29, 2011, as directed by Judge Leo Ryan's chambers, Mr. Stengel brought both the original email and Ms. Silisky's altered email to your office. Mr. Stengel was advised anyone could have done that, and to come back, should he have something more concrete. Copies of that package were also brought to Mr. Bradford G. Y. Carney, Mr. Leon W. Berg, Dr. Catherine Killeen, and Mr. Robert Wayne Lazaro. 4.5 months later, on April 12, 2012, at the appeal to that very trial, Ms. Silisky confessed to altering the evidence, in cooperation with her attorney Bradford G. Y. Carney. Shortly thereafter, and upon obtaining the transcript, Mr. Stengel, as instructed by your office, brought the confession transcript to your office. Apparently, a confession was too concrete. Your failure to take proper action at that point has in essence authorized Ms. Silisky, a known career criminal with suspicions of murder, and her corrupt attorney, Bradford G. Y. Carney, to ongoingly commit an enormous amount of egregious and criminal acts on hundreds of citizens, including children, schools, an abuse organization, teachers, fathers, mothers, sisters and brothers, religious institutions, charities, every single taxpayer, and the list keeps growing. Many unknowingly had their names used, identity theft, in order to abuse even more victims. In essence, victimized, to victimize others. Nothing short of a psychotic fraud circus. All the while, you continued cashing your paychecks to protect those you in fact knowingly victimized. Those abused, hoodwinked, conned, or lied to, in order to further facilitate psychological warfare, and Nazi-like brainwashing tactics, and countless abuses to Miss Silisky's own children, along with, but not even close to, being limited to, many police, and at many different police stations, doctors, psychologists, hospitals, clergy, the U.S. Postal Service, and their agents, and even the FBI. And went so far as to prevent Mr. Stengel from protecting his own children, and from warning those very victims, using illegal and unconscionable, Hitler-esque tactics, which you repeated for years, which continues to this day. After Mr. Stengel exhausted his avenues, and the fraud continuing, on October 22, 2013, and October 29, 2013, Mr. Stengel sent the Maryland State's Attorney 3 DVDs loaded with crimes by Miss Silisky, including over a dozen detailed presentations. Therefore, making the state of Maryland well aware of 1. Miss Silisky is a career criminal. 2. Cons and manipulates people, schools, organizations, etc. 3. Fraudulently, on January 18, 2012, lied to the Maryland State's Attorney's Office, where Mr. Stengel was falsely and criminally charged. The main allegation was not even possible. which included that 72-page presentation. Note: after informing the state of Maryland of abuses to the public, the response Mr. Stengel received was as follows.
Office of the State's Attorneys, Baltimore County. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney. November 5, 2013, Dear Mr. Stengel, this office has investigated your complaint for perjury charges. We have reviewed all of the available evidence and, in the exercise of prosecutorial discretion, we are declining to file charges against Susan Sileski. Sincerely, John P. Cox, Deputy State's Attorney. State's Attorney's Office.
Dear John P. Cox, apparently, you are confused. Who said anything about perjury? The presentations show numerous criminal actions, even involving others, committing serious crimes. Your slick willy attempt to pigeonhole what was provided as only perjury is pathetic. However, we can use your own words against you, as well, as there are over 2,000 documented counts of perjury. All complete bullshit. Like your letter. Prosecutorial discretion. Discretion. Because, from the victim's view, it's prosecutorial deception. From the victim's view, it's prosecutorial collusion. From the victim's view, it's prosecutorial corruption. From the victim's view, it's prosecutorial fraud. From the victim's view, it's prosecutorial abuse of power. Knowingly allowing the public to be preyed upon makes you a thug. Do your children know what you do to earn your paycheck for protecting the public in order to buy them all those gifts? Welcome to your legacy. Welcome to the list. Dear John P. Cox and Scott D. Schellenberger, now that we introduced your characters, or lack of, let's take a closer look. Your letter dated November the 5th, 2013, stated,
We have reviewed all of the available evidence.
Really? 3 DVDs of criminal activity, spanning over a decade, all reviewed. Apparently, you are as trustworthy, honest, and filled with integrity and conscience as Miss Sileski and the crime ring you are protecting. What was on those 3 DVDs that your entire building could not have reviewed in the time frame? Curiously, it's the same exact knowingly fraudulent lies, done so with foreknowledge and malice, that the Attorney Grievance Commission of Maryland said, which is also meticulously documented. The very reason federal agencies are also being provided this, as it's pretty clear. Maryland is a rogue state. Follow along. Warning, reality will no doubt be painful to criminals. So Mr. Cox and Mr. Schellenberger, you have been warned. We will only touch on the surface, as the internals, such as the listed directories, are loaded with subdirectories, and many have their own subdirectories, and so on, each containing meticulously documented crimes and evidence of crimes. Anything but the surface, for now, would take way too much time. Besides, collusion, corruption, fraud, abuse of children, abuse of the public, abuse of power, and the list appears to be never-ending, will be pretty obvious. 1. The screenshot of the directory, which contained what was on the 3 DVDs, Round 1, Round 2, Round 3, abuse, alcohol, drugs and medications, alienation, Ambien, banking, contempt, disparage, fake conversation and keeps lying regarding Thanksgiving, forced to flee home, forgery, forgery sample, fraud, hacked email accounts, hacking, harassment, hidden cameras, ignore subpoenas, learned of websites, lied to police, manipulation, perjury, racism plus, sample emails admitting liar, transcripts, November 29, 2010, intro and filing, A2X, table of contents, 13 pages, table of contents, Berg grievance, Mike Stockman book info, October 2011, legal bills, dated November 7, 2011, Carney balance, $84,198.99, highlighted, October 14, 2011, State's Attorney talk, see criminal. November 2011, 1:30 p.m., email marked to Susie, regarding real estate bank account issues, busted. Susie photo, giving finger in front of Meyer, December 25, 2008. 2. The screenshot of the directory, which contained what was on the 3 DVDs. Round number 1, October 22, 2013, State's Attorney, table of contents, January 18, 2012, false criminal filing, Susie signed, with exhibits, A to G, 45 pages. October 22, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, March the 21st, 2011, false financial filing, repeated and added false claims, Susie signed, with Exhibit A to F, 50 pages. October the 22nd, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, May the 1st, 2012, false financial filing, Susie signed, with Exhibit A to F, 51 pages. October the 22nd, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, December the 7th, 2010, violence, perjury, Susie signed, with Exhibit A to F, 25 pages. October the 22nd, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, altered evidence and perjury, Susie signed, with Exhibit A to J, 52 pages. October the 22nd, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, ambient drugs, Susie signed, with Exhibit A to B, 5 pages. October the 22nd, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, physical abuse, regarding boys' Latin school event, perjury, Susie signed, with Exhibit A to B, 6 pages. October the 22nd, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, physical abuse, strike you, perjury, Susie signed with Exhibit A to B, 8 pages. October the 22nd, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, Zero Link Info 2010, sworn statement signed, with Exhibit A to Y, 524 pages. Note, Mr. Scott D. Schellenberger, you will notice at the top, contains evidence of Miss Sileski's first fraudulent criminal filing, which you accepted, and stated you fully investigated, where the main allegation was not even possible. Go team, go! 3. The screenshot of the directory, which contained what was on the 3 DVDs. Round number 2. Ignore subpoenas. Manipulation samples. Sample emails, admitting liar. Transcripts. October the 28th, 2013, State's Attorney, Charity Theft, Auction of Dreams, combined, Susie signed, with Exhibit 1 to 18, 79 pages. October the 29th, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, January the 18th, 2012, false criminal filing, Susie, learned of website, signed, with Exhibit 1 to 4b, 72 pages. October the 29th, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, Bank Forgery Contract, forgery signed, with Exhibit 1 to 2, 5 pages. October the 29th, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, Computer Hacking, signed, with Exhibit 1 to 4, 18 pages. October the 29th, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, Covert Audio Recordings, signed, with Exhibit 1 to 3, 12 pages. October the 29th, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, Lied to Police, signed, with Exhibit 1 to 2, 8 pages. October the 29th, 2013, State's Attorney, Table of Contents, Telecommunications Hacking, PGE, signed, with Exhibit 1 to 2, 7 pages. March the 4th, 2011, 11:52 a.m., Susie email to Mark, regarding dodgeball, employment, no BBQ. June 7th, 2010, 9:14 a.m., email Susie to Mark, regarding this neighborhood turning black. Must move, highlighted. July the 16th, 2012, Susie false financial filing with court. November 2010, 1:30 p.m., email Mark to Susie, regarding real estate bank account the shoes. Busted. Note, Scott D. Schellenberger. You will notice the second entry, delivered 1 week after the previous set, also contained that very fraudulent first criminal filing. However, this contains 72 pages. Even more evidence was provided, of Miss Sileski's learned of websites. Statements were in fact false, and sent with not one, but 2 contradictory pieces, from Miss Sileski herself. If you are counting, that would be 3 stories told in different filings. Rather than fully investigated, I believe the terminology you should be using is fully investigated and done. Reversed. We will drill down into the subdirectory called manipulating samples. Like all the others provided, each one is evidence of crimes committed with foreknowledge and malice. Some examples are perjury, subornation of perjury, manipulating others to assist in crimes, staging events, to then manipulate others to assist in crimes against Miss Sileski's own children, the courts, schools, so-called friends, so-called family, and so on. All provided to the state of Maryland, who knowingly permitted these abuses and egregious acts, and authorized these criminal behaviors and abuses to continue. Everything provided to the state of Maryland, and Scott D. Schellenberger, was also provided to Bradford G. Y. Carney, from Royston, Mueller, McLean and Reed, LLP. Leon W. Berg, the alleged best interest attorney, Dr. Catherine Killeen, the child custody evaluator and psychologist, from Berman and Killeen. Robert Wayne Lazaro, from Heisler, Williams, and Lazaro, the Circuit Court for Baltimore County, the Attorney Grievance Commission of Maryland, and Glenn Grossman, and many others, most of which graduated from the same law university, a breeding ground, where they apparently teach students to be criminals, as it would appear, have classes on predatory strategies against children and the public. And yes, where Scott D. Schellenberger is an alumni. Let's have a look into just this one subdirectory. But first, to better understand what the state of Maryland, Scott D. Schellenberger, and others were provided, you may recall just one line item, already shown, noted the contents of Ms. Sileski's first fraudulent protective order filing. Noted here again, as, November 29, 2010, intro and filing, A2X, table of contents, 13 pages. Note, this was Ms. Sileski's filing only, not the transcript of her perjurious statements, and many crimes of false swearing, afterwards, to judge this Kathleen Cox's face. And, to better yet understand the egregious acts by Ms. Sileski, as these were provided to the state of Maryland, Scott D. Schellenberger, and many others. These samples were prior to that very filing, many just days before, proving perjury, with foreknowledge and malice, even against her own children and the public. And, using just these samples, as many others were provided, show actions on November the 3rd, 2010, November the 14th, November the 22nd, November the 26th, November the 27th, and even November the 29th, 2010, a mere 2 hours 14 minutes prior to Miss Sileski's fraudulent, perjurious filing. Now, let's take a look.
6 months I've generated a French business and I already have income coming in. And it leads to the camera. And it leads to the camera. Okay. No, it goes all the way out to the curb. Put your shoes on, go.
Dad?
Yeah. Mark, turn the TV on.
I'll help you.
Okay. Mark, turn the TV on so you can watch them, or go out with them.
No, I'll make it so it's, keep it on here, Okay, I understand.
Start off with you like screaming, like what the hell is wrong with you? Yeah, you're sitting here like yelling.
They start off with me screaming.
What are you doing right now?
I'm screaming?
Yes, you should hear yourself.
I am?
Yeah, maybe you need that videotape of yourself.
I'm not starting without screaming at all. Not even close.
You should hear yourself right now.
I'm screaming.
Well, you're yelling, you're loud. Yeah, maybe you need that videotape of yourself. Yeah, maybe you need that videotape of yourself. Yeah, maybe you need that videotape of yourself. You know, Thanksgiving was fine, but it wasn't inclusive. You didn't make it inclusive. I'll tell you what. I'll give you the cameras when you give me my hard drive off the servers. You didn't take the recycle out. You're going to take it out? They're driving around the driveway. You're not going to take all this trash out?
Yeah.
But they're out there now. Why wouldn't you just take it out? Why wouldn't you empty the trash can? I don't understand. Huh?
Okay.
But today's the recycle day. It's a recycle bin.
Okay. Now, we will drill down into one layer of the manipulation samples directory. Abuse. Catherine Barrison. D-Day. Get Bobby. Taking charity, zero income. Table of contents, Zolo Toro photographer, with exhibits 1 to 25, 80 pages. November the 30th, 2010, 10:57 a.m., 13 seconds. Susie says we have major DAing cameras all over the house. November the 14th, 2010, 7:13 p.m., 22 seconds. Susie says, turn on the TV to see via the camera's view. November the 22nd, 2010, 7:27 a.m., 28 seconds. Susie says I am screaming and yelling, and mentions video camera. November the 23rd, 2010, 11:23 a.m., transcript highlighted, Judge Ryan, page number 27 to 28, Boys Latin School, banned. Heard from attorney. November the 26th, 2010, 11:26 a.m., 56 seconds, Susie says Thanksgiving was fine, what about the assault? Susie liar, perjurer. November the 26th, 2010, 11:05 a.m., 26 seconds, Susie saying I don't have room for forgiveness with her. November the 26th, 2010, 11:19 a.m., 30 seconds, Susie reads her email to me. Matthew's mother not Jewish, other side of world. November the 26th, 2010, 11:43 a.m., 2 minutes, 31 seconds, Susie says, the core issues in our marriage. November the 26th, 2010, 12:33 p.m., 20 seconds, broad freak out. If I could beat the effing shit out of you I would, with Alex nearby. November the 26th, 2010, 12:52 p.m., 28 seconds, Susie, Mark, with Susie hitting wall, and conversation regarding throwing mirrors. November the 26th, 2010, 11:43 p.m., 42 seconds, Susie saying, she had no idea how we got here, and Susie says when she was in theater, wishing we were holding hands. Ha! November the 27th, 2010, 11:54 a.m., 1 minute, 6 seconds, Susie says to Alex, Daddy has things from her hard drive. Brought something to Eileen's house, and lies to Alex about lying. November the 27th, 2010, 11:59 a.m., 22 seconds, Susie saying, David R. Stryker, the attorney, will someday tell Alex how bad a person I am. November the 27th, 2010, 12 p.m., 27 seconds, Susie admits home server holds back up to her drive. November the 27th, 2010, 4:40 p.m., 48 seconds, Susie admits to unemployment fraud. November the 27th, 2010, 4:42 p.m., 55 seconds, Susie says, Trish Marcelli thinks I am on drugs, as all her friends listening to what she has told them. November the 27th, 2010, 5:21 p.m., 3 minutes, 11 seconds, Susie still on phone while kids in room. Slamming dad saying we will see whose house this is, in the end. November the 27th, 2010, 5:27 p.m., 1 minute, 1 second, Mark talking to police on phone. Susie saying she wants a copy of videotape from office camera. November the 27th, 2010, 6:13 p.m., 32 seconds, Susie steals Mark's cell phone, mentions it was password protected, involves kids. November the 27th, 2010, 6:25 p.m., 1 minute, 34 seconds, Susie lies to police officer Bell about stealing my phone. November the 27th, 2010, 9:01 p.m., 2 minutes, 41 seconds, Susie berating me to kids, and others. Freaking out. Throwing camera. November the 27th, 2010, 9:11 p.m., 1 minute, 37 seconds, Susie tells Alex to disobey police. November the 27th, 2010, 9:13 p.m., 33 seconds, Susie gets idea for protective order, excited. November the 27th, 2010, 9:16 p.m., 18 seconds, Susie lies again to police officer Bell about my cell phone. November the 27th, 2010, 9:22 p.m., 51 seconds, Susie telling Alex Amaya, Daddy goal for mommy to go to prison. November the 27th, 2010, 9:31 p.m., 23 seconds, Susie asks if I am getting restraining order on Monday. No. November the 27th, 2010, police reports 10-331-1206, Officer Bell. November the 30th, 2010, 10:05 p.m., 16 seconds, that won't help me with the peace order. Must be within 30 days. November the 30th, 2010, 10:05 p.m., I'm kinda screwed. He hasn't physically hurt me. Confession. November the 30th, 2010, 8:27 p.m., 16 seconds, Susie tells why she did the protective order. To stop the agony. So much for the lies to Judge Cox. November the 30th, 2010, 9:54 p.m., 39 seconds, Susie saying, laughing, her dad's house may be paying for this divorce. November the 30th, 2010, 9:58 p.m., 42 seconds, Susie wishes she did not find guns so peace order would have lasted longer. November the 30th, 2010, 10 p.m., 45 seconds. Susie confirms Mark would never hurt anyone with a gun. He would not let anyone hurt his kids or family. That's 100% the truth. November the 30th, 2010, 10:13 p.m., 15 seconds. Susie correcting herself regarding her lies about drug abuse. Now she calls it misuse. December the 1st, 2010, 7:04 a.m., 57 seconds. Alex asks Susie, didn't the judge know he wanted to see Dad on Hanukkah? Susie lies. November the 27th, 2010, 8:30 a.m., 2 minutes, 14 seconds. Susie comes with police. Removes items in contempt of court order.
We have reviewed all of the available evidence. We have reviewed all of the available evidence.
4. We look at the screenshot of the directory, round number 2, and subdirectory, manipulation samples. Follow me. 5. What do we have here? Below the directories containing many other crimes, we have number 1 on the list, table of contents Zolo Toro photographer with exhibits 1-25, 80 pages. You will notice it begins with an underscore, so that it would in fact appear at the top, for your convenience. 6. Let's just look at the 2 pages of table of contents. 6a, page number 1. 1. Table of contents. 2. September the 16th, 2010, 6:45 p.m., 5-second video. Wife smashes kitchen cabinet into husband's head in front of 8-year-old daughter. Note, husband sent out email with only 5-second clip, confident wife would lie, regarding actual event. 3. September the 16th, 2010, 6:45 p.m., 5-second video, 8 photos from 5-second video above. 4. September the 16th, 2010, 6:45 p.m., 30-second video, additional 25 seconds showing wife's violent act and husband leaving scene. Note, would an abused wife do that to her abuser? Would an abusive husband just walk away? 5. September the 16th, 2010, 6:45 p.m., 30-second video, 16 photos from 30-second video above. 5a. September the 16th, 2010, 6:45 p.m., transcript from 30-second video, 16 photos from 30-second video above. 6. September the 16th, 2010, 6:56 p.m., 57-second video, daughter fielding mom's disparaging comments. Daughter defends father. 7. September the 16th, 2010, 6:56 p.m., 57-second video, transcript of video from above. 8. September the 16th, 2010, 7:47 p.m., wife's confession email, written by wife, to wife, shortly after cabinet attack. 9. September the 17th, 2010, photos taken the following day, showing husband's bruised face. 10. December the 7th, 2010, court transcript, page number 33, wife provides sworn testimony under the penalty of perjury, stating, I haven't shown any violence. 11. January the 26th, 2011, 10:28 p.m., email from Mr. Zolo Toro, to wife's attorney, Bradford Carney. Note, email states, the video looked staged, with the cabinet hitting mark. 12. January the 27th, 2011, Mr. Carney's legal bill states, read email from Stuart and Karen Zolo. 13. October the 14th, 2011, 5:42 p.m., email from Stuart Zolo to Bradford Carney, attorney. Note, email states, by the way, how did Mark Stengel intercept the email I sent to you? Intercept? Who implanted Mr. Zolo with that word? 14. October the 14th, 2011, 5:54 p.m., email from Bradford Carney, wife's attorney, to Mr. Zolo. Note, Bradford Carney outright lies regarding how Mr. Stengel received his email. Then, Bradford Carney implants the phrase, I am truly sorry if you are being harassed by Mark Stengel. 15. October the 14th, 2011, 6:01 p.m., email from Mr. Zolo to Bradford Carney states, I really don't want to be involved. 16. October the 14th, 2011, 6:03 p.m., all October the 14th, 2011 emails, sent by Bradford Carney to wife, and Sam Crystal, Mr. Carney's associate. 17. October the 14th, 2011, Mr. Carney's legal bill states, read email from Stuart Zolo and draft response thereto. 18. April the 12th, 2012, court transcript, pages 59 to 60, wife denies cabinet assault, and Mr. Zolotarou will testify in court, proving the entire event was staged. 19 April the 12th, 2012, court transcript, pages 60 to 61, wife admits to confession email, yet denies contained confession. Note, Judge Martin asks wife if her confession email changes her denial of attack. Answer, no. 20 April the 12th, 2012, court transcript, pages 248 to 249, Judge Martin's decision states he fundamentally believes wife, and he fundamentally does not believe husband. Note, apparently wife's confession email, which she admitted, then denied in the face of confession email, holds no weight. 21 October the 14th, 2012, court transcript, pages 206 to 207, husband testifies stating Mr. Zolotarou, a professional photographer, was manipulated and deceived by wife. Note, husband also stated, Mr. Zolotarou is subpoenaed for next trial. 22 November the 26th, 2012, court transcript, pages 28 to 29, Judge Enza rejects husband's request to question Mr. Zolotarou to expose how he was victimized by wife. 23 September the 18th, 2013, court transcript, pages 190 to 193, Judge Enza states, there should be no video. No one should be watching a video. 24 September the 18th, 2013, court transcript, pages 190 to 193, Judge Enza, regarding who is responsible for Mr. Carney's bills, states husband sent out irrelevant subpoenas. 25 September the 16th, 2010, 6:45 p.m., original 5-second video slowed down, showing actual intention was not an accident. No snapshots included for this video. That's just the table of contents. 78 pages followed. Although you heard Mr. Zolotarou himself say he does not want to be involved, and provided to the state of Maryland and Scott D. Schellenberger. Wait until you see for yourself, as you would not believe it otherwise, what Miss Siliski, Mr. Bradford G. Y. Carney, Dr. Catherine Killeen, Leon W. Berg, Judge This Judith C. Enza, the state of Maryland, and Scott D. Schellenberger, and either others did, or also had others do, to Mr. Zolotarou, after receiving mailings, one of which contained this very same exact 80-page presentation, leaving zero doubt the veracity and violent psychological warfare and brainwashing results waged on hundreds of children, schools, families, and Maryland citizens, aka the public. 7. While in round number 2, let's also look into the transcripts directory. These contain over 2,000 counts of perjury, suborning perjury, confessions of perjury, confessions of lying to police, confessions of that very altering of evidence, and an insane amount of the state of Maryland's crimes. What it does not contain is a black criminal. Let me repeat that. What it does not contain is a black criminal. January the 18th, 2012, criminal filing, summons District Court for March the 19th, 2012. February the 22nd, 2012, restraining order web doc. March the 1st, 2011, transcript, Judge Enza, web First Amendment, kids, 27 pages. March the 21st, 2011, motion for legal fees, 18 pages. April the 8th, 2011, Susan's answers to interrogatories, separated, 70 pages. April the 12th, 2011, protective order appeal transcript, Martin, 256 pages. July the 17th, 2012, merits transcripts, Judge Enza, 256 pages. July the 18th, 2012, merits transcripts, Judge Enza, 286 pages. July the 27th, 2012, merits transcripts, Judge Enza, 161 pages. September the 18th, 2013, transcript, Enza, 204 pages. October the 25th, 2012, extent protective order, Susan filed, Judge Enza, 13 pages. October the 25th, 2012, extent protective order, Judge Norman, transcript, 296 pages. November the 15th, 2011, Susan filed original and amended. Mark received from court records. November the 23rd, 2011, transcript, Stengel, 159 pages. November the 26th, 2012, hearing transcripts, Judge Enza, 56 pages. November the 28th, 2012, merits transcripts, Judge Enza, 224 pages. November the 29th, 2010, protective order filing by Susan, 8 pages. November the 29th, 2010, protective order transcript, 14 pages. November the 29th, 2011, to Judge Ryan, regarding November the 23rd, 2011 trial. Original and Susan's altered emails with screenshots. November the 29th, 2012, merits transcripts, Judge Enza, 189 pages. November the 30th, 2012, merits transcripts, Judge Enza, 146 pages. December the 1st, 2011, pendant light hearing, transcripts, 117 pages. December the 7th, 2010, protective order, Judge Alexander, transcript, 99 pages. December the 11th, 2012, contempt visitation, transcript, Enza, 39 pages. December the 22nd, 2010, court order, temporary custody. 8. The screenshot of the directory, which contained what was on the 3 DVDs. Round number 3. You will even notice crimes provided by Dr. Catherine Killeen, near the bottom. You did mention perjury, correct? November the 23rd, 2011, trial, Meister, October the 25th, 2012, ignored subpoena, abuse, banking, coach baseball, basketball lies, contempt court order, conversion, defamation case, Facebook from Susan backup, Farmers and Merchants Bank, employment, forgery samples, gun emails, not in fear, hasn't worked in 3 years, hidden cameras, not, manipulate samples, Mark tries to get help, mold, Ms. Global Scams, Joe DiMello, genuine title, office recording with Susan recording, perjury, police reports, power of attorney, protective order scam, Bobby Siliski, stalking, Susie scam, plugging my iPhone into her computer, calendars, Susie signatures changes, zero income, table of contents, Susie, Killeen, alcohol drugs, meds, with exhibits, number 1 to 7, 43 pages. November the 30th, 2010, 1:26 p.m., 12 seconds, hacker cracking password, question to Susan. December the 1st, 2010, 10:17 a.m., 2 minutes, 19 seconds, Susan hires computer hacker number 3, to break into my password-protected systems. Curriculum vitae, Stengel highlighted. Hacking, Mike Stockman book info, Susan boyfriend. Important fact, you heard it in October 2013, which by the way, is almost 2 years after you were provided Miss Zaleski's Altered Evidence Criminal Act, provided on November the 29th, 2011. Note, let's not forget, your letter dated November the 5th, 2013 stated,
We have reviewed all of the available evidence. We have reviewed all of the available evidence.
9, really. Let's just go into one directory, called banking. That's an awful lot of stuff you were provided. Lots of crimes. Lots of serious crimes. Lots of evidence of serious crimes. American Funds, Alex, 81X. American Funds, Meyer, 68X. BB&T Bank, 605, Dover, ends, 3493. BB&T Bank, 3201, Esther, Place, LLC, account, 51XX. BB&T Bank, Auction of Dreams, 51X, opened, November the 8th, 2002. BB&T Bank, credit card, Susan, ends, 9122. BB&T Bank, Mark, Susie, ends, 1814. BB&T Bank, MS Global, ends, 1165. BB&T Bank, MS Global, ends, 2721. BB&T Bank, Sally, Susie, checking, 6533, 6159. BB&T Bank, Susan, and A&M, ends, 3542, 4163, 1219. BB&T Bank, Susan, Home, Equity, ends, 5998. BB&T Bank, Susan, Personal, ends, 4414, Pious. BB&T Bank, Susan, Sally, Savings, ends, 7334. Checkbook, entries, Susan, $270,000, scam. Chesapeake Bank, Gordon. Cist Bank, Gordon. Home Equity Line, ends 4323. F&M Bank, 605 Dover, number 10XX. F&M Bank, Alex, CD, 10X. F&M Bank, CD, Just Susan, number 30X. F&M Bank, CD, Mark, Susan, number 30X. F&M Bank, Gordon, ends 5302. F&M Bank, Gordon Estate Account, 10X. F&M Bank, Meyer, CD, 10X. F&M Bank, Susan, checking account number 10X. M&T Bank, Mark, and Susan, savings, ends 1982. Merrill, Beyond Banking, Susan, used to steal, funds. Stolen, diverted funds, samples. 2011, tax return, Susan, C, $5,000 IRA. BB&T Bank, 2010, payment history, shell game. Note, let's not forget, your letter dated November the 5th, 2013 stated.
We have reviewed all of the available evidence. We have reviewed all of the available evidence.
10. Let's just go into one subdirectory called BB&T Bank, Sally, Susie, checking 6533-6159. This is not all of the statements in this one statement account. As you can tell, they were even highlighted for your convenience. Let's take a look. 2008, 0711, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2008, 0711, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2008, 0811, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2008, 0811 underscore Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2008, 0910, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2008, 0910, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2008, 1010, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2008, 1010, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2008, 1210, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2008, 1210, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0109, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0109, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0209, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0209, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0310, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0310, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0410, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0410, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0505, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0505, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0609, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0609, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0710, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0710, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0811, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0811, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 0910, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 0910, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 1009, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 1009, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 1109, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 1109, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2009, 1210, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2009, 1210, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2010, 0108, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2010, 0108, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2010, 0208, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2010, 0208, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2010, 0310, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2010, 0310, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2010, 0412, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending. 2010, 0412, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending, highlighted. 2010, 0510, Sally, Susan, checking statement ending.
We have reviewed all of the available evidence. We have reviewed all of the available evidence.
10A, let's just go into one more subdirectory called banking, BB&T Bank, Susie and A&M. This is not all of the statements in this one statement account either. As you can tell, they too were even highlighted for your convenience. Let's drill down into one of the statements. Now we look inside the one for December 2010 deposits. It clearly notes a deposit on December the 15th, 2010, for $113. That alone pretty much confirms the perjury, which the state is referring to. The very day Miss Siliski signed her zero income statement provided to the courts under oath. The summary of deposits into this account alone exceeds $63,000. Also illegally took over $20,000 from unemployment. The summary for this same account on 2011 exceeds $89,000. Yet in 2011, Miss Siliski contributed $5,000 into her IRA. Miss Susan Siliski's 2011 tax return, form number 8880. Notes, number 1.
Traditional and Roth IRA contributions for 2011. $5,000.
In 2011, Miss Siliski continued collecting unemployment as shown. Miss Susan Siliski's 2011 tax return, form number 1040. Notes, number 19.
Unemployment compensation. $410.
Where on March the 21st, 2011, Miss Siliski, again in cooperation with Mr. Bradford Carney, on March the 21st, 2011 filed to have their fraudulent legal bills paid by Mr. Stengel, and filed the same zero income statement, and stating she is not employable. Zero income, and not currently employable, all this while taking charitable contributions from many, as she herself testified. This including taking from the Jewish Family Services, as she continued her fraud of claiming poor, simply in order to further portray the fraud constantly presented to the courts, and anyone she could con something from. Pity is a powerful tool, used by Miss Siliski.
Yeah, from there they recommended that I go see Hannah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
And did you avail yourself of their services?
Yes.
Okay. What services did they provide for you?
Everything. They gave me a social worker to see at Jewish Family Services. They have given me housing supplies. They've given me furniture. They've given me food. They gave clothing to my daughter. Everything.
November the 5th, 2013.
Dear Mr. Stengel, this office has investigated your complaint for perjury charges. We have reviewed all of the available evidence and, in the exercise of prosecutorial discretion, we are declining to file charges against Susan Siliski. Sincerely, John P. Cox, Deputy State's Attorney, State's Attorney's Office.
Can you repeat that last part of the last sentence?
We are declining to file charges against Susan Siliski.
Again.
We are declining to file charges against Susan Siliski.
Who?
Susan Siliski.
Again.
Susan Siliski.
One more time, for your victims.
Susan Siliski.
Thank you for that. Because you did mention perjury. You were provided the transcripts from April the 12th, 2012, which contained Miss Siliski's confession to altering evidence. It also contained this on page number 91. April the 12th, 2012, serial perjurer. Inside the Mind of Psychosis. Susan Stengel v. Mark Stengel.
And then I'm going to show you an email dated. I'm sorry, is that the 6 is the email dated 11/16? Yeah. Is that right? email dated November 14th. Yes, you can identify that.
Who's Susan? Who's Susan?
And for further verification, and just 15 pages later, on page number 106.
I read the first line.
Which it says.
If so, dear Susan, my name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
I read the first line.
Which it says.
If so, dear Susan, my name is not Susan.
We are declining to file charges against Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
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 Dr. Alan Kimmel, Ms. Steggles' medical doctor, aware of Ms. Steggles' mental health issues.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
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 As I understand it, she wishes to be known as Susan S-U-S-A-N, Sileski S-I-L-E-S-K-Y.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
As I understand it, she wishes to be known as Susan S-U-S-A-N.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Scott D. Schellenberger, and for your most recent fraudulent criminal act, falsely incarcerating Mr. Stengel for providing evidence of your and your crime ring's crimes, we have this Certificate of Compliance and Service.
I hereby certify that I have complied with Maryland Rule 1-322.1, and further certify on this 21st day of May, 2014, the above was sent to Kent L. Greenberg, Esquire. Jill P. Savage, Assistant State's Attorney for Baltimore County, Towson, Maryland.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Before we come back to this page, let's go one page up.
Scott D. Schellenberger. Scott D. Schellenberger. Scott D. Schellenberger. Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Who else did you sign your name to, as witnesses against Mr. Stengel, to go to prison for 5.5 years? Let's take a look, shall we?
Witnesses. 1. Alexander Stengel. 2. Maya Stengel.
One more time.
1. Alexander Stengel. 2. Maya Stengel.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Warning. 2. Scott D. Schellenberger, and all the others, such as the corrupt Judge This Judith Cienza, the corrupt Judge This Kathleen G. Cox, and the rest of their crime ring. Get the kids' passports. Miss Sileski is going to take off. 1 passport, Miss Sileski illegally obtained by lying to the United States of America, federal agency, as noted in the November 28, 2012, transcript, pages 193-194.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Dr. Alan Kimmel, Ms. Steggles' medical doctor, aware of Ms. Steggles' mental health issues.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski. Susan Sileski. Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Susan Sileski.
My name is not Susan.
Your rubber stamping of criminal actions, continually waged upon children and the public, is unconscionable. You are an accessory to each and every one of those acts, and all acts which derived from those acts, and so forth. These abuses and crimes have been, unto to this very day, still being waged, systematically, against the very people you are accepting paychecks to protect. In itself, each cashed paycheck is nothing less than theft from the taxpayers. You are responsible, and should be held accountable for your egregious actions, as well as paying the taxpayers back every penny stolen.
Office of the State's Attorneys, Baltimore County. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney. November 5, 2013, Dear Mr. Stengel, this office has investigated your complaint for perjury charges. We have reviewed all of the available evidence and, in the exercise of prosecutorial discretion, we are declining to file charges against Susan Selesky. Sincerely, John P. Cox, Deputy State's Attorney. State's Attorney's Office. Office of the State's Attorneys, Baltimore County. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney. November 5, 2013, Dear Mr. Stengel, this office has investigated your complaint for perjury charges. We have reviewed all of the available evidence and, in the exercise of prosecutorial discretion, we are declining to file charges against Susan Selesky. Sincerely, John P. Cox, Deputy State's Attorney. State's Attorney's Office. Office of the State's Attorneys, Baltimore County. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney. November 5, 2013, Dear Mr. Stengel, this office has investigated your complaint for perjury charges. We have reviewed all of the available evidence and, in the exercise of prosecutorial discretion, we are declining to file charges against Susan Selesky. Sincerely, John P. Cox, Deputy State's Attorney. State's Attorney's Office.
John P. Cox. However, a few months after your confirmed predator authorizing letter, your office put out a bench warrant for Mr. Stengel's arrest. This in order to falsely incarcerate Mr. Stengel for mailing evidence of crimes, which mailings you also received. Surely they look familiar. Furthermore, you accepted fraudulent criminal charges from Ms. Susan Selesky, who did not receive even one mailing. John P. Cox. Any relation to Judgeess Kathleen G. Cox? Either way, you do work in the same building, correct?
Catches him on video throwing baggies of heroin down a storm drain. Enough evidence for an arrest and a conviction.
You know, the old saying is, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a video's worth 1,000,000.
And, only 1 month before, Mr. Stengel overloaded the state of Maryland with crimes.
There should be no video. No one should be watching a video.
Catches him on video throwing baggies of heroin down a storm drain. Enough evidence for an arrest and a conviction.
You know, the old saying is, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a video's worth 1,000,000.
Now, you're not in trouble for getting into his account, are you? Because I had to crack his password for you to do this.
How much are, well over 100 videos worth? How much are dozens of confessions, caught on video, and in sworn court transcripts worth?
Victims and witnesses in criminal cases deserve to have their voices heard. It is our goal at every stage of the prosecution process to be aggressive and effective advocates for the victims of crime and the citizens of Maryland. We want to help victims and witnesses navigate the often perplexing criminal justice system. Information for victims and witnesses, including daily docket information, directions to court locations, and ways to contact our office, are provided to help you find the information that you need. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney.
After receiving this fraud upon society, authorized by the state of Maryland letter, Mr. Stengel called Mr. John P. Cox. That conversation was disturbing, to say the least. A couple weeks later, Mr. Stengel wrote to John P. Cox. December 2, 2013. Dear John P. Cox, I appreciate your returning my call the other week. Toward the end of our conversation, you mentioned they wanting to have you prosecute me, which you stated you were not interested in. I can only assume they, you meant were those involved in the false criminal filing against me on January the 18th, 2012. This was not the first, nor is the last, false/covert setup, since the only way this group thinks they conceal their crimes is to have me criminally prosecuted. The perpetual lie is the one stating harassment, simply used to keep the truth from the public, so they can continue to commit the same actions on others and not be accountable for their true actions. In reality, it's their accusations of harassment, are them, committing harassment. They want the state of Maryland to prevent those from reporting their crimes, so they can continue to commit crimes. Your office suggested I bring in evidence of who altered the evidence provided under oath, on November the 23rd, 2011, which I did. At some point, someone should start looking at actions, what happened, and not what is being said, stories about what happened. The mere fact they collectively have no evidence, other than what can be traced back to false information, altering evidence, or some wrongdoing, in order to have perceptions altered, should be weighed heavily. Committing crimes in order to change perceptions is the definition of premeditation. Anyone familiar with the parties are aware the email stating "kill or be killed" was speaking to Susan Silesky's mentality, not Mr. Stengel's intentions. That was especially known by Ms. Silesky herself, which is why it was altered. Beverly Smith said she felt the altering didn't change the ruling, in her opinion. The facts of this case, not the results of their crimes, makes it very clear the entire filing was false, like the other filings, loaded with lies, fraud, and garbage. Their entire allegation of fear is false. Who files false claims against someone they say they fear? It's because they know I'm not violent. There are several emails sent to Ms. Silesky stating she will go down in flames. Why weren't they saying Mr. Stengel was going to burn her at some stake? Because they know it speaks about her mentality. Go down in flames. Kill or be killed. Same sender/receiver. Same person, same mentality. We are aware of people that have been victimized by this group after the Maryland State's Attorney's Office was notified. Many of the victims are not even aware of what was done to them, such as using their names to manipulate others, like Catherine Bearson, Stuart Zolotero, Alyssa Meister-Friedman, Officer Bell, Jewish Family Services, women's abuse groups, are some in the short list. And yes, Maryland State's Attorney also used, in stating I was being charged criminally, made numerous times, even in the courts. They are completely aware of the effects of such statements being made. We, as in we the people, should have comfort in knowing we are protected against criminals, regardless of their social status or who they know. We the people includes yourself, your wife if married, and your children, if you're lucky enough to have any, myself, my children and the entire public. I know they would like everyone to think this is a bad divorce case, however, that's simply the pig they dressed it as, and the vehicle used. All evidence points to fraud, collusion, manipulation, perjury, and crimes, such as possibly extorting almost $500,000 in fees, in a bad economy. The fact that there is a prenuptial agreement where the wife gets nothing, alone should raise concern. Evidence, if followed to its source, only concludes facts. The scales of justice should look at evidence, not contrived falsities. Mr. Carney's statement in court, that his constant investigations of myself was frustrating, because he kept coming up empty. He knew that, but unable to send bills, unless he doesn't know that, and spends time looking. Either way, confessing that in court, then going to the state's attorney's office such as yourself, only proves nothing but lies were provided. At the end of the day, what this case will show, is a small group can run this town, and take an at-home father who never missed one PTA meeting, school event, sports event, managed their baseball teams and head coached their basketball teams, about 25 teams over the years, homework, book reports and everything in between, to look like a bad and dangerous person. And take a mother, known pathological liar, physically abusive to the father and the children, mentally and emotionally abusive to everyone, even bullied, I believe her name was Kim, at the state's attorney's office for 2 hours, to keep her from dropping the fraudulent criminal case. The reason they have so many people, some contacting yourself, running around stating this, and that, and I, just have the evidence. If they had actual evidence of any of their false allegations, you would have it. One would think you would have evidence from Chase Bank's fraud unit. Like everything else, it doesn't exist. Everyone knows the state's attorney Scott D. Schellenberger was used as a tool in the process of manipulating the courts and the public. providing solid evidence as such, asked for by the state's attorney's office, then ignored, is unnerving at best. I am not sure how often your department gets a case where you can ask criminals literally hundreds of questions, while holding many of their own contradictions in hand, where they must lie to your face. Some questions have 2 contradictions, many have much more. On average there are 3 to 5 different stories provided, many under oath, making it more of a circus atmosphere. They have to keep committing crimes, as there is no way out. No way out, for them, was a phrase I decided to use about 2 years ago. I was thinking how a criminal would react to that statement. They reacted all right, taking their crimes to the next level. The timeline created for the movie is amazing. The problem is, rogue elements take all but a few, if positioned properly. That and all roads lead to money, or should we say, money leads all roads. Happy holiday to you and your family, marked Stengel. Note, the state's attorney's office of Maryland, nor John P. Cox, ever responded to Mr. Stengel's letter. John P. Cox. Just a few months after receiving this letter, your office put out a bench warrant for Mr. Stengel's arrest, for providing more crimes. So dangerous, and a flight risk, the bail was set at $500,000. $500,000. Flight risk. Really? Because, the facts clearly show, you couldn't get Mr. Stengel to go away. This in order to falsely criminally charge Mr. Stengel for the second time. This time, falsely incarcerating Mr. Stengel. Also sent to John P. Cox that very same day, December 2, 2013, was a 40-page criminal complaint on Bradford G. Y. Carney. Page 1 shows the Attorney Grievance Commission of Maryland's own case law was provided as well. This, regarding perjury, and suborning perjury, and the now famous, altered evidence criminal scam, Ms. Susan Sielski confessed, Mr. Carney was involved. No response was ever received from John P. Cox, or anyone from the state, regarding this extensive complaint, with 36 pages of evidence. The next thing Mr. Stengel knew, he was being arrested with a bench warrant, for mailing evidence of crimes, such as this example. In order for that to take place, how many people and organizations were manipulated and conned to assist in the false incarceration? Let's take a look at what you and the state of Maryland was provided by Susan Sielski, who did not receive even one mailing, yet was very busy.
Do not contact at residence or place of business. Susan Sielski, Sally Sielski, John Wayne Brown, Judge Raymond Team Me, Appellate Court, Maryland. Loretta Team Me, Boys Latin School of Maryland, Christopher Post, Headmaster, Boys Latin School. Dumbarton Middle School. Neil Swearin, Southern Trust Mortgage. Scott S. Grau, Southern Trust Mortgage. Miller's Minuteman Press. Genuine Title. Joe D. Marlowe. Jason Marlowe. Glenn Burney Transmission. Mark Schwartzman. Karen Kaiser. Mount Royal Printing Company. Kevin Rittingham. Rabbi Fink, Oheb Shalom Synagogue. Rabbi Nagel, Oheb Shalom Synagogue. Oheb Shalom Synagogue. Ina Basefeld, Alex's therapist, Owings Mills. Peggy Kolodny, Maya's therapist. Owings Mills. Dr. Dana Silver, Sinai Clinic, Children's Pediatrician. Deputy Sheriff Dickel, Precinct 6. Hana, Women's Jewish Abuse Organization. Nancy Aiken, Hana. Portland Jewish Federation. The Associated, Baltimore Federation. Salon Lori. Tybalt Favre, France. Paola Favre, Connecticut. Alex Favre, France. Florence Gaudieux, France. Jean-Bernard Gaudieux, France. Deneen Noraying, Canada. Kenny Noraying, Canada. David Appelfeld, Adelberg, Rudo, Dorf, and Hendler. Cheryl Brandt. Michael Barrison. Catherine Barrison. Sabrina Campbell. Cindy Zarcone. Gina Gallahue. Ron Gallahue. Catherine Stevens. Karen Spellman Ash. Eileen Rosenberg. Jonathan Rosenberg. Marcia Treese. David Treese. Amy Sullivan. Eric Sullivan. Hillary Siegel. Jason Siegel. Stuart Zolotoro. Karen Zolotoro. Karen Bark. Rob Bark. Kathy Oken. Harvey Oken. Mindy Lipsy. Scott Kirkin. Catherine Kirkin. Kara Cohen. Jay Cohen. Tammy Bensky. Holly Musgrove. Jeff Musgrove. Alice Garden. Maury Garden, Esquire. Vicky Moore, Dr. Michael Schweitzer, Dr. Dana Silver, Brian Lubart, Betsy Bender, Trish Backer Maselli, Augie Maselli, Dr. Sean Woolley, Ph.D., Brian Woolley, Rebecca Karakis, Jose Mages Karakis, Rochelle Simon, David Simon, Mike Stockman, Katie Thomas, Mike Thomas, Rocco Tenaglia, Chris Santiago, Euclides Santiago, Sarah Blattner, Mark Blattner, Janet Schutzman, Fred Schutzman, Steve Friedberg, Mary Friedberg, John Friedberg, Beth Friedberg, Paul Friedberg, Maddie Friedberg, Amanda Friedberg, Ian Friedberg, Sarah Friedberg, Jessica Friedberg, Nicole Friedberg, Betsy Ostreicher, David Ostreicher, Andy Weinberg, Kelly Weinberg, Charlotte Davis, Amy Wister, Dr. Milan Wister, Jennifer Scandora, Jean Campbell, Boys Latin School of Maryland, Allison Meister Friedman, John Friedman, Andy Meister, Cheryl McCann, Teresa Hall, Megan Kenny, Ed Kenny, Louise Wright, Bill Wright, Stephanie Kagan, Brian Kagan, Susie Stevens, Scott Stevens, L. Cridge Estates.
State of Maryland versus Mark Stengel. In the Circuit Court for Baltimore County. Case number 03K14-0997. State's discovery pursuant to Maryland Rule 4-263. Now comes the State of Maryland by Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney for Baltimore County, and Jill P. Savage, Assistant State's Attorney for Baltimore County, and says the following: pursuant to Maryland Rule 4-263, B. 1, and 4-263, D. This discovery is being provided to the defense attorney, with the understanding that physical copies of the materials attached hereto will not be provided to the defendant. If a DVD or CD of an interview has been sent in discovery, you may need to download free software in order to view it. The download is available on the internet at www.videolan.org. 1. All written and oral statements of the defendant, and of any CO defendant, that relate to the offense charged, and all material and information, including documents and recordings, that relate to the acquisition of such statements are attached hereto. 2. The prior criminal convictions, pending charges, and probationary status of the defendant and of any CO defendant with the exception of juvenile proceedings, are available at casesearch.courts.state.md.us. 3. The name of each state's witness whom the state's attorney intends to call to prove the state's case in chief or to rebut alibi testimony, together with all written statements of the person that relate to the offense charged, are contained in the attached discovery materials. Pursuant to Maryland Annotated Code Criminal Procedure Article, Section 11-205, the addresses of the witnesses and victims have been withheld. 4. Evidence of other crimes, wrongs, or acts committed by the defendant that the state's attorney intends to offer at a hearing or at trial pursuant to Rule 5-404, B, is attached hereto. 5. Material or information in any form, whether or not admissible, that tends to exculpate the defendant or negate or mitigate the defendant's guilt or punishment as to the offense charged is attached hereto. 6. Material or information, if known, whether or not admissible, that tends to impeach a state's witness is attached hereto. 7. If records have been obtained of a medical or psychiatric condition or addiction of a witness, that may impair the witness's ability to testify truthfully or accurately, they are only available pursuant to court order. The defendant should contact the state to see if the state has any such materials in its possession. 8. Relevant material or information regarding specific searches and seizures, eavesdropping and electronic surveillance, including wiretaps as well as any pretrial identification of the defendant, by a state's witness is attached hereto. 9. The names of each expert consulted by the state's attorney in connection with this action, the expert's name and address, the subject matter of the consultation, the substance of the expert's findings and opinions, and a summary of the grounds for each opinion, if available at this time, are attached hereto. An expert is any witness who has formed an opinion or reached a conclusion. In addition, the substance of any oral report and conclusion by the expert, if available, is attached hereto. Pending reports of an expert will be provided promptly after this office has received them. Upon reasonable notification to this office, the defendant or his counsel may inspect and copy all written reports or statements made, in connection with the action by the expert, including the results of any physical or mental examination, scientific test, experiment, or comparison. 10. Upon reasonable notification to this office, the defendant or his counsel may inspect, copy, and photograph all documents, computer-generated evidence as defined in Rule 2-504.3, a, recordings, photographs, or other tangible things that the state's attorney intends to use at a hearing or at trial. If this answer contains copies of any evidence which the state may use at trial, it does not mean that all items have been provided. They are, however, available for inspection upon sufficient notification. 11. Upon reasonable notification to this office, the defendant or his counsel may inspect, copy, and photograph all items obtained from, or belonging to the defendant, whether or not the state's attorney intends to use the item at a hearing or at trial. 12. The state hereby notifies the defendant of its intention to introduce at trial business records in accordance with Maryland Rule of Evidence 5 to 902. The records are available for inspection upon reasonable notice to this office. 13. The state intends to introduce evidence of a DNA profile, pursuant to Courts and Judicial Proceedings Article, Section 10 to 915 of the Maryland Annotated Code. 14. Upon request of the state, the defendant shall appear in a lineup for identification, speak for identification, be fingerprinted, pose for photographs not involving reenactment of a scene, try on articles of clothing, permit the taking of specimens of material under his/her fingernails, permit the taking from his/her body of samples of blood, hair, and other material involving no unreasonable intrusion upon his/her person, provide specimens of his/her handwriting, and submit to reasonable physical or mental examinations. 15. This notice is given pursuant to Maryland Rule 4-342, d, and is to inform you that the state intends to introduce statements of victim impact should the case result in a conviction. 16. Upon notice to the state, the defendant may inspect the contents of the state's file in this case, excluding those items otherwise privileged by law. 17. The state reserves the right to amend and/or supplement this answer, upon reasonable notice to the defendant or his counsel before the trial, by supplying information not presently known to the state's attorney's office. 18. Pursuant to Maryland Rule 4-263, g, I, 2, the state has not provided the mental impressions, trial strategy, personal beliefs, or other privileged attorney work product, nor has it disclosed the identity of a confidential informant, if any, unless the state's attorney intends to call the informant as a state's witness. 19. The state witnesses may identify the defendant or co-defendant in court. 20. Copies of 14 separate mailings made by Mark Stengel. Respectfully submitted. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney for Baltimore County.
Jill P. Savage, Assistant State's Attorney for Baltimore County. Certificate of Compliance and Service. I hereby certify that I have complied with Maryland Rule 1-322.1, and further certify on this 21st day of May, 2014, the above was sent to Kent L. Greenberg, Esquire. Kent L. Greenberg, PA. 10995 Owings Mills Boulevard, Suite 208. Owings Mills, Maryland. 21117. 410363-1020. Jill P. Savage, Assistant State's Attorney for Baltimore County. County Courts Building, 401 Bosley Avenue, Towson, Maryland, 21204. 410887-6610. Witnesses: 1. Alexander Stengel. 2. Maya Stengel. 3. Susan Sileski. 4. Mark Dickel, Baltimore County Sheriff's Office. 5. Family Violence Representative.
State of Maryland, versus Mark Leslie Stengel. In the Circuit Court for Baltimore County. The above entitled case having been referred to Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney for Baltimore County, and having fully investigated said case, now comes into said court, and for and on behalf of the State of Maryland, gives the court here to understand and be informed, that Mark Leslie Stengel, on and between December 12, 2013 and January 17, 2014, in Baltimore County, did engage in stalking Susan Sileski, against the peace, government, and dignity of the state. Stalking, Criminal Law Article 3-802, B, 16525, this charge is classified as a misdemeanor.
And is a jailable offense, with a maximum penalty of incarceration, up to 5 years, and fines of up to $5,000.
Second count. The above entitled case having been referred to Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney for Baltimore County, and having fully investigated said case, now comes into said court, and for and on behalf of the State of Maryland, gives the court here to understand and be informed, that Mark Leslie Stengel, on and between December 12, 2013 and January 17, 2014, in Baltimore County, did unlawfully and maliciously engage in a course of conduct that alarmed and annoyed Susan Sileski, with intent to harass, alarm and annoy Susan Sileski, after a request to desist, against the peace, government, and dignity of the state. Harassment, Criminal Law Article 3-803, 10191. This charge is classified as a misdemeanor.
And is a jailable offense, with a maximum penalty of incarceration, up to 90 days, and fines of up to $500.
Third count. The above entitled case having been referred to Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney for Baltimore County, and having fully investigated said case, now comes into said court and for and on behalf of the State of Maryland, gives the court here to understand and be informed, that Mark Leslie Stengel, on and between December 12, 2013 and January 17, 2014, in Baltimore County, did unlawfully and maliciously engage in a course of conduct that alarmed and annoyed Nancy Aiken, with intent to harass RM and annoy Nancy Aiken, after a request to desist, against the peace, government, and dignity of the state. Harassment, Criminal Law Article 32803-10191. This charge is classified as a misdemeanor
and is a jailable offense, with a maximum penalty of incarceration, up to 90 days, and fines of up to $500.
To the person charged, 1. This paper charges you with committing a crime. 2. If you have been arrested, you have the right to have a judicial officer decide whether you should be released from jail until your trial. 3. You have the right to have a lawyer. 4. A lawyer can be helpful to you by a. Explaining the charges in this paper, b. Telling you the possible penalties, c. Helping you at trial, d. Helping you protect your constitutional rights, and e. Helping you to get a fair penalty if convicted. 5. Even if you plan to plead guilty, a lawyer can be helpful. 6. If you want a lawyer but do not have the money to hire one, the public defender may provide a lawyer for you. The court clerk will tell you how to contact the public defender. 7. If you want a lawyer but you cannot get one, and the public defender will not provide one for you, contact the court clerk as soon as possible. 8. Do not wait until the date of your trial to get a lawyer. If you do not have a lawyer before the trial date, you may have to go to trial without one. Scott D. Schellenberger, State's Attorney for Baltimore County.
Jill P. Savage, Assistant State's Attorney for Baltimore County, State of Maryland, versus Mark Leslie Stengel. UID number. DOB, October 30, 1957. Description, gender male. Height, 5 feet 7 inches. Weight, 165 pounds. Hair color, gray, or partially gray. Eye color, blue. Race, white. Other. Address, 3743 Birch Lane, Owings Mills, Maryland, 21117. District Court Case Number. State Tracking Number, 14-7003-000312-4. Police Report Number, Citations Charged, Bail Status.
Issue bench warrant, bail recommendation, $500,000.
Per Jill P. Savage, Assistant State's Attorney, for Baltimore County. Criminal Information. Co-Defendants. Circuit Court for Baltimore County. Request for evaluation, by the Office of the Court Psychiatrist. Name, Mark Stengel. Date ordered, March 21, 2014. Judge, Finifter. Charge, stalking, harassment. Case number, K14-0997. State's Attorney, Jill Savage. Defense Counsel, Kent Greenberg. Telephone 410-363-1020. Individual status, bail, recognizance, unchecked. Institution, checked. Home detention through Baltimore County Detention Center. Referral initiated by, court, unchecked. State's Attorney, checked. Defense Counsel, checked. Reason, S, for referral, nature of offense, unchecked. Unusual or dangerous behavior, checked. The defendant has allegedly sent out thousands of packets of distributing information about his former wife to hundreds of people. Some of the information is threatening. Treatment options, checked. Trial date, June 18, 2014. Judge's signature, signed.
Victims and witnesses, in criminal cases, deserve to have their voices heard.
The remainder of this filing contains 21 pages of exhibits. We will allow 7 seconds to pause each page, should you wish to read one or more.
Victims and witnesses, in criminal cases, deserve to have their voices heard.
The realities of fraud. State of Maryland versus Mark Stengel, by Mark Stengel, arrested on April 5, 2014. Fraud via Susan Siliski, aka Susie Siliski. On April 5, 2014, I was picked up by police at 11:45 a.m. and advised there was a warrant for my arrest. Huh? I was permitted to call my oldest son, who came by in time to see his father handcuffed in the back of a police car. Taken to a Montgomery County police station, shoes removed, where I also had my legs shackled, then mug shots taken, fingerprinted, asked many ridiculous questions, apparently related to criminals, then put into a jail cell and held for many hours, with my severe chronic back problem, on a cement floor with everything else made of steel. Awaiting transfer to Baltimore County. About 2 hours later, the transferring officers to Baltimore County were on their way. I was taken out of the cell, handcuffed and legs shackled, then shuffled and handcuffed to a bench to wait. Due to my bad back, I requested my boots at this time, which was provided. About 20 minutes later, 2 transferring officers arrived, without the proper paperwork. Their request to the local captain to have the papers faxed was denied. They were required to drive back to Baltimore County. My boots removed, and I was then placed back into the cell, where the handcuffs and shackles were removed. About 45 minutes later, upon being advised the transfer officers were on their way, I was taken out of the cell, handcuffed and legs shackled, then shuffled and handcuffed to a bench to again wait. The officers arrived, shackles removed and placed into the back of their police car. Due to my bad back, I requested they handcuff me in the front, opposed to behind my back, which they did. Then transported from a Montgomery County police station to a Baltimore County police station. Upon arriving, shoes removed, again on cement floor, shackles put back on, and again, mug shots taken, fingerprinted, and again asked many of the same ridiculous questions. Then put into a holding cell, cement floor without shoes. I was provided a thin mat to lay on, a 2-inch mat, before any pressure is applied. Several hours later, until around 2 a.m., I was removed from the cell, handcuffed, shackled, boots and jacket returned. Again transported with 2 other prisoners. This time remained shackled and then handcuffed to the 2 other prisoners, creating a daisy chain, then shuffled outside, into a police paddy wagon van. Driven to another location unknown, where the 2 prisoners and myself were taken into a basement and put into another jail cell. I waited while the other 2 prisoners were one by one taken to speak to a magistrate, not me, which lasted another hour or so. The other 2 and I were again, legs still shackled, handcuffed together in a chain, shuffled outside, placed back into the police paddy wagon van, then transported to the Baltimore County Detention Center in Towson, Maryland. Shuffled out of the van, into the detention center where we were unchained and handcuffs, boots, jacket and shackles removed. Telephone access was provided. Baltimore County Jail. Arrived, April 6, 2014. Fraud via Susan Siliski. Kept for about another hour while asked questions, mug shots taken again, fingerprinted, again, for the 3rd time. Then taken to a room where I waited, always on cement floors, where they made me remove my clothes, strip searched, even making me squat and cough, then provided me with the prison uniform. Most received orange and a couple received red uniforms. I later learned the red was for those with more serious crimes. At least sending non-threatening the United States mail didn't require a red outfit, even though my bail was much higher than many of theirs. Next, a required nurse visit where they gave me a needle for tuberculosis, which I objected to, but regardless of my objection, was forced to adhere. Then put back into a holding cell until taken to medical for an exam. Placed into another cell with about 12 prisoners, all waiting for medical. This took about an hour or 2. Then with other prisoners, taken to a temporary cell block with 18 prison cells, 2 prisoners each, arriving at 4:30 a.m. Over 16 hours from start to this point. And held with $500,000 bail. Having been wrongfully incarcerated for over a week, Due to a psychotic ex-wife and fraud and corruption in Towson, Maryland, USA, the conditions are not legal or humane. Having severe back issues, degenerative disc disease, severe stenosis and severe arthritis, I was originally forced to have a top bunk in cell number 13, making the climbing painful. After several requests to see the medic, all ignored, I strongly requested to be taken to the hospital. I began filling out the 24-hour response forms again, all the while keeping notes of their actions. I requested to speak with a lieutenant or a captain. Those requests were followed with nonsense responses or ignored. After numerous requests over 3 days, in severe pain, I was sitting against the wall at 3 a.m., unable to sleep. A guard came in, Officer Icons, who threatened me, stating, "If you think your back is a problem, it won't be anything in comparison if you don't get back into your bunk." He said something more egregious, all witnessed by Ron Kilman, who shared the cell. About 30 minutes later, the same guard came back into the cell and confiscated my notes. He stated it was the property of the jail. I took another piece of paper and began noting from memory, including the most recent acts by this guard. Another 15 minutes or so he returned again, and demanded I take everything off my bunk and out of the cell, as I was being moved to the lower floor since I have medical issues on file. Mr. Akins rejected my request to assist me in carrying the mattress and other belongings to the lower floor, and rejected waiting until 4:50 a.m. when breakfast arrives, and other inmates will help carry these things downstairs. The cell he put me in, number 9, already had 2 inmates in there, and was given a boat to put the 2-0 mat on, which sat on the concrete floor. I remained awake for the balance of the morning. On Monday night, I was transferred upstairs, a normal practice. Sent to cell number 1, that cell was smaller than the one on the lower floor, and it too had 2 inmates, forcing me to sleep on the 2-inch mat, on the concrete floor. I made several requests for, at the very least, one of those boats, and was always told they didn't have any. A 2-inch mat on concrete it is. With the mat on the floor, the other inmates also had no place to move around, and the guy on the top bunk had a hard time getting off his bunk, as floor space was minimal. The cells are designed for 2, including where your personal items would be kept, such as toothbrush, toothpaste, spoon/fork, cup, all on the floor. A request for a second 2-inch nothing mat was also rejected. The 2-inch mat equates to 2 inches, until you lay on it, then what you have is 2 sheets of vinyl with tissue separating them. It should also be noted, there is to be a 1-hour opportunity to exercise. That would generally be outdoors with fresh air. The inmate said the area on the first floor is what they, I guessed it would be, you governor, consider the exercise area. There are 20 cells, 10 on the bottom floor and 10 on the top. I counted 46 inmates, meaning 6 cells had 3 inmates, all forced to sleep on concrete. Seating for eating on the first floor totaled 20, and another 8 on the second floor. Many ate standing or in their cells. That seating area on the first floor took up about 1/3 of the entire floor space. Coupled with the stairs, very little room was available to walk around, let alone exercise. Not a tall person, I decided to walk the perimeter, which totaled exactly 60 steps. Not heel to toe, but regular steps. If you divide that by the 46 inmates, it's clearly impossible for everyone to even walk around, let alone exercise. I found the inmates, not the problem. The guards, a whole different story. There were some guards that were normal, in that they acted accordingly, depending on what they were dealing with. Many were miserable people. One can understand their upset given where they work, but more often than not, their actions were not provoked. Yet angry responses were provided. It's easily noticed, the same guards are the problems. There are even inmates in there for things like child support, tickets, etc., as if putting them in jail will put money in their pockets to resolve the issue. Although in the general population, only a couple were loud and upset. Most all were fine. For me, the proof rested in the TV. With only one TV, and 46 inmates, one would think that would be a battleground. Not one argument, the entire time I was there. One of my cellmates, 26 years old, is very bright. Shockingly bright and articulate. He is 12 credits from completing his associates. The reason many are not rehabilitated seems to be, they are forced to watch paint dry. I began mentoring this young man, often up all night talking. For example, he is professed in the solar system, and forwards conversations, well. When I observed him with others, he sometimes goes into what he calls ghetto. Not disrespectful in any way, just not his normal intellectual self. As he said, ghetto he uses as needed. He is forbidden to continue his education, as the limit while incarcerated is receiving a GED. Making things worse, Towson University is viewed from our window. The lack of rehabilitation often talked about is obvious when limits are set so low, and going beyond that is not permitted. They are being forced to not rehabilitate. How would this young man ever get out of his social circle, if limited to that very circle, which more often than not, forces them to return to the same? Missed opportunities like allowing higher education are being missed intentionally. Just look at who profits from them being there. The food. I don't believe food is the right word. After reading their website, and how it describes what is provided to the inmates to be similar to what most would eat at home, only would be true if one's home is inside that jail. Every meal has potatoes. Most of the time not fully cooked. For the most part, it is some kind of sauce and mystery meat. The website should mention, the food which is being referred to only relates to those inmates on home detention. Baltimore County Jail Home Detention. Returning to court while on home detention. When on home detention, you are required to stay at home. Leaving to go food shopping 4 hours each week, doctor's appointments, dental visits, pick up prescriptions, laundromat, visiting attorneys, clothes and shoe shopping in a mall if need be, and coming to the Towson Detention Center weekly for reporting, then going home, etc. Not a problem. However, having to come to court, even if just for a simple postponement, here is what must happen. 1. Arrive at the detention center by 6 a.m. for a 9:15 court time. 6 a.m., even if your court time is in the afternoon. 2. Empty all belongings to be tagged and bagged. 3. Strip searched. 4. Taken to a holding cell, where even if you have an afternoon court date, you wait. 5. If you are there long enough, you get fed the slop, I mean food, no I mean slop. 6. Constantly on concrete. Bad back, too bad. 7. After watching the sheriff's chatter for 30 to 45 minutes, at around 9 a.m., taken out of the holding cell, handcuffed to other inmates, chain gang style, and legs shackled. 8. Shuffled out to a paddy wagon and driven just a few blocks to the courthouse. 9. Shuffled out and put into another holding cell, where they remove the handcuffs but your legs remain shackled. 10. Asked why so late, see number 7. Eventually taken out of the holding cell with other inmates, handcuffs put back on. 11. Shuffled through to the elevator to the back of the judge's chamber area, where another cell awaits you. This deputy removed the handcuffs. Apparently, they don't always take them off at this point, before putting you into that cell. Note, I have found the deputies to always be pleasant, even humorous at times. Unlike some of the jailhouse guards. 12. Eventually, with legs shackled, and handcuffed, shuffling to the desk where your attorney awaits. Important note, during number 12, you could wear a blinking neon sign that says, "Got involved with a sociopath." 13. You stand there maybe 5 minutes, where the prosecutor, who is manipulated by a sociopath, just as the courts and so many judges have over the last several years, except Judge Alexander, and along with my attorney speaks to the presiding judge. Note, this particular prosecutor is involved with an abuse organization herself. Another women's abuse organization was also conned into constantly coming to court over the years, unaware of the real abuser, therefore also unaware being abused as well, and currently conned into filing their own charge with the state. This after a failed attempt to do the same in Baltimore City, so it's off to the county as directed, not by request, rather by demand. To better understand how an abuse organization would file harassment charges in the first place, is to understand why after failing in the city, they relentlessly continued to the county, is to also understand why the state would accept charges which resulted in a $1.5 million bail, then reduced to $0 and home detention. 5. Easy to remember, there are more characteristics of an unconscionable They possess no conscience, pathological liars, con artists, bullies, and are always the victim. The bullying trait, which is consistent with not having a conscience, is how they get others to continually do things, even after failed attempts. Once caught, trapped if you will, they go into their kill or be killed mentality, nothing to lose. While standing in the courtroom, you're left wondering, isn't the prosecutor curious why nothing matches? Apparently, that did occur to her, otherwise, why drop the bail from $1.5 million to $0, then home detention? Returning to court while on home detention. 14. Shuffle out of the courtroom, where you then decide that neon sign needs to be two-sided. 15. Placed back into the holding cell, which is about 30 feet from the courtroom, and handcuffs removed. 16. After about a half hour or so, taken from that cell, handcuffs put back on, then shuffled through the judge's hallway and into the elevator, the same ones you take when entering the courthouse from the front. Note, you may notice those elevators have a back door as well. 17. Shuffled into another holding cell with other inmates. Some are pretty funny. They often discuss the different judges. Personally, regarding one particular judge, or in this case, Judge Judith Enza, I suggest faking death for postponement. Note, all kidding aside, appearing before any judges can't be good. You never know what they are going to do, because they don't even know what they are going to do from minute to minute. Unfortunately, judges are not tested for mental illnesses like psychopathy or sociopathy, pronounced sociopathy. Some may consider a judge to being bipolar, which may be the case, which is treatable. Sociopaths can't be fixed. 18. Provided a bagged lunch consisting of bologna. To this day, even those producing that product aren't exactly sure what it is: cheese, white bread, mustard, juice box and cookies. Ironically, this is served in jail also, but is on the better days. Otherwise, slop. Cookies it is. This after watching paint dry for about 2 hours. 19. About a half hour plus later, taken out of the cell, handcuffs put back on, chained to other inmates, chain gang style, and shuffled out to a paddy wagon and driven a few blocks back to the detention center. 20. Shuffled inside the detention center, counted again and again and again. Lined up, handcuffs and shackles removed. 21. Taken to another cell, the one you started in early that morning. Waiting. 22. Luckily, the home detention officers act quicker, coming down in about 15 minutes. 23. Taken upstairs, where you began. This in order to retrieve your belongings. 24. Since it was a Wednesday and Thursday is the day to report to the detention center to pay your $75 and urine test, whether or not you were in there for drug-related issues or not. 25. Get in your car and go home. All of that, or a reality option like, go to the courthouse, meet your attorney, go to court and go home. Can the logic behind that system be any more ridiculous? Permitted to go out in the public on your own, where there are children, adults, elderly people, and sociopaths. If they thought for 1 second you even may be dangerous or may be violent, or even may have outbursts, chances are you're not going to be permitted to go food shopping, etc. Maybe if I was a nut job, it would make sense. However, I got involved with a violent, psychotic, evil sociopath. What really happened to Robert Gordon Siliski, aka Bobby Siliski? The timeline is more than curious. The events leading up to his untimely demise at a very young age is disturbing. There is one event that is alarming, which has not yet been disclosed. Important. The home detention officers were very professional and respectful. Update: $1.5 million bail to $0 and home detention, to no home detention and $500 bail. That says it all. The bail was a joke, and only used as a tool to manipulate thought processes of those targeted, including the state of Maryland. But Mr. Stengel knows the state of Maryland knew full well what they were doing. And that too is all well documented. Go Baltimore, Maryland. Go Towson, Maryland. Go Maryland. Footnote: this is a sampling of the then Governor Martin O'Malley administration. reality, this all began in part because many names were provided to the state's attorney by the evil Susan Siliski, stating they were being harassed and in no way wanted to be contacted by Mr. Stengel, or were manipulated by the evil Susan Siliski to do some illegal act against Mr. Stengel, like file a complaint, a false police report, or whatever the highest level the evil Susan Siliski and the crime ring could manipulate whomever to do. All in the name of the evil Susan Siliski and Company, aka Team F, looking out for your best interest, of course. Mr. Stengel sat facing 5 years in prison on 1 count, and 2 counts of 90 days each, prison time. 1 count was the evil Susan Siliski's ability to manipulate an abuse organization to file a harassment charge. Those funding that particular Jewish woman's abuse organization, Hana, who has been manipulated by the evil Susan Siliski from the very beginning, being dragged into court as if she, Susan Siliski, is the victim, this going back to 2010, will not be happy to find out what their donations are actually being used for. Another person, Alison Meister-Friedman, on the board of that same Jewish woman's abuse organization, Hana, was manipulated to lie, under oath, now guilty of perjury and subornation of perjury at the hands of the evil Susan Siliski and her corrupt attorney, Bradford G. Carney. In the same trial, where Susan Siliski and her attorney, Bradford G. Carney, altered evidence and later confessed. Manipulating Alison Meister-Friedman to lie on the stand under oath was just icing on their cake. Allegations, which were already recanted by Miss Siliski minutes earlier. However, Alison Meister-Friedman, the witness, was out in the hallway at the time, as witnesses are not permitted in the courtroom. Then walked in, swore under oath, and committed perjury. That case, where Mr. Stengel's children lost custody with their father, from 50-50 to only 1.5 days every 2 weeks. Documents available, as always. The prosecutor, Jill Savage, is very involved in another abuse organization as well. It's apparent these organizations are no match for unconscionables or sociopaths. Samples of the actual crimes committed by Miss Siliski, as found on her hard drive backup, and other sources. Bank fraud, documented. Forgery, documented. Child abuse, confessed. Child neglect, lying to police, confessed. Actual counts of lying to police, dozens of police and many, for each false report, altering evidence, confessed. Additional altering of evidence, documented, not yet confessed. Suborn perjury, manipulating people to knowingly lie under oath, documented. False protective order filings, plural. Physical child abuse, confessed. False criminal filings, plural. Lying to a federal agency, confessed. Falsely under oath accused father of rape, recanted. Illegally executing a will, documented. Manipulated a notary to illegally execute will, documented. Conversion of property, documented. Disparaging her own brother, documented. Falsely accused Mr. Stengel of physical abuse, recanted. False financial filings under oath, documented / multiple. Spousal abuse on video, wrongfully involving children's schools, confessed. Abusing abuse organization, multiple. Stalking, admitted on voicemail. Harassing, admitted on voicemail. Over 2,000 counts of perjury, documented. Documented racism email. Alienation of children, confessed and documented. Alienation of siblings, confessed and documented. Parental alienation, confessed and documented. Encouraging spouse to lie to doctor to get more medication, documented. Stealing spouse's prescription medication. Manipulating school officials, confessed. Forged school documents. Falsely accused of life-threatening events, many. Forged bank documents, documented. False financial information provided to schools for grants, documented. Theft of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Forcing child to commit a crime, multiple. Falsely accused Mr. Stengel of alienation of children. Forged certificate of deposit, documented. Disparaging the children, many, documented. Extramarital affairs, once forcing the children to be present inside the man-whore's home in the Boston area. Acts of violence, documented. Unemployment fraud, documented. Falsely accuse other parents and children at daughter's school, documented. Attempt to manipulate niece to file false police report, documented. The evil Susan Siliski demanded her mother to add fear keywords in protective order, against her brother, documented, allows children to take the fall for her actions. Many, one in police report, defamation of Mr. Stengel, times ridiculous, defamation of children, many, defamation and disparaging of many people, documented, times ridiculous, bullying tactics used, and how everything is accomplished, harassing others to disseminate false information, documented, times many, staged event at son's school falsely accusing Mr. Stengel of violence, recanted, lying under oath about a deputy sheriff's actions, documented, manipulating state officials, documented, disparaging father to children, documented, times ridiculous, racism, documented in both video and email, taking prescription class 1 drugs prescribed to others, documented in confession email, staging events to manipulate people, many documented, bullied prosecutor to not drop false criminal charges, under oath, falsely accused stepson of having gun in his car and threatened to kill her, ridiculous, and never owned or possessed a gun, ever, disparaged children to others, many, documented, told son she will advise his school, his father being banned, was a mistake, never advised school, besides, it was a staged event. Involved children in false claims made, documented, falsely accused children during mother's criminal act on video, acts of violence in presence of children on video, blames and punishes children for her own actions, projection, used children as shields of crimes, documented, tax evasion, irate to police officer, documented, hacking password protected computer, documented, on video, making false claims to state officials, times ridiculous, hacking password protected network, hacking password protected phone, confessed, manipulate other to commit unlawful acts, documented, stealing thousands from a charity, documented, restrain children against their will, one of which is documented on video, holding children hostage against their will, documented, attempt theft of real property, documented, disparage father to children every single day. This is the short list. However, blowing the whistle, the reporting of these crimes, apparently an illegal act by Mr. Stengel, that is a problem for which he must be silenced at all costs. Advising those whose names were used without their knowledge to the detriment of Mr. Stengel's children, their schools, their lives, their reality, and even the public, that's harassment. Maybe in Nazi Germany. The evil Susan Siliski, knowing full well the truths behind it all, then going into the state's attorney's office and lying, alleging being harassed, is the reason the evil Susan Siliski is there. Even creating a list adding over 114 names and entire organizations to a so-called do not contact list. The evil Susan Siliski stating, these people do not want to be harassed by Mr. Stengel. How many even know they are on that list, or that such a list exists? The list, which is nothing more than a list, to keep alienating those very people from the corrupt and covert acts perpetrated upon them, their families, schools, etc. is not a problem. Miss Siliski later provided the state with an even longer list, exceeding 144 names and entire organizations. Those on any of these lists will be forever asked the same question. Are you evil? Assisting evil? Or conned by evil? The evil Susan Siliski, aka Susie Siliski, didn't work alone. Just some of those that knowingly assisted are the evil Bradford G. Carney, the evil Judge This Judith Enza, the evil Dr. Catherine Killeen, the evil Robert Lazaro, the evil Glenn Grossman, head of the corrupt Attorney Grievance Commission of Maryland, the evil Leon W. Berg, who while Mr. Stengel was incarcerated, he was visited by a federal agent of the United States Postal Service, who advised Mr. Stengel, Mr. Leon W. Berg, the alleged best interest attorney, was steadfast in having Mr. Stengel, his minor client's father, federally prosecuted. In reality, for informing people of Mr. Leon W. Berg's crimes, which most likely, like the others, have spanned decades, and was just caught with his tiny balls in the cookie jar. This act, as all their acts, requires providing false information to the courts, the state, and other officials. In this case, a federal official. How did those like Susan Siliski, Leon W. Berg, Bradford G. Carney, Dr. Catherine Killeen, and others, get so many others involved, and against Mr. Stengel? The real question should be, why did they need so many people? However, Let's answer the how part. As an example, imagine you know Leon W. Berg. And the Leon W. Berg you know is a well-respected attorney and person in the community, and has been for as long as you have known him. You, driving down Main Street, see Mr. Berg, who waves you over. You pull over, say hello, and Mr. Berg asks you for a ride up the road, a few miles. No problem. A few miles later, you pull over, Mr. Berg gets out, and thanks you. Your good deed for the day. There is one small detail Mr. Leon W. Berg omitted in this example. He just robbed a bank, and you drove the getaway car. You are now the getaway driver, and don't know it. You have committed a crime, whether you know it or not. You're screwed. Even if you find out the truth, you committed a crime. Who are you going to tell? A. You were conned. B. Committed a crime. Assuming you found out, and someone asks you about Mr. Leon W. Berg's character, are you going to say, he is a crook, a bank robber? Or, are you going to go with the flow? Business as usual. Besides, why get further involved? Even though you are already involved, and now witness to Mr. Berg's character. You are a getaway driver. That assumes you are aware you were conned. If not, you would continue to speak to Mr. Leon W. Berg's well-respected character, and could pass a lie detector test, if asked. That's how many became, and become involved. Intentionally not being provided the truth, coupled with intentionally omitted information. With literally hundreds involved, including schools, in what would be a divorce, now requires so many to commit crimes, and obtain getaway drivers. Is that because Mr. Stengel is this terrible, violent, dangerous, drug-addicted, abusive crazy person? Is that why a divorce, with a prenuptial agreement, uncontested, require the extortion of $1.5 million, 9 volumes in the courts, and is over 4 years and going? Or is it they are accustomed to running their scam and bowling people over within a year or so, and Mr. Stengel refuses to allow them to steal his children and feed them to a psychotic, evil, career criminal? And along the way, with the overwhelming documented evidence, which they are all trapped in, could not turn back, and continued to force his children into their manufactured, delusionally created world, which you, the getaway driver, is involved. You decide which makes sense. Why would any father fight so hard, for so long, give up so much, and against so many people, as the getaway drivers are ever growing? Does that sound like a deadbeat dad? Or has Mr. Stengel documented all of their crimes against himself, his kids, the community, your community, the courts, as they obtain frauders to keep Mr. Stengel quiet? What then does Mr. Stengel do? He documents them going to the courts, committing fraud, to illegally obtain orders, to retain their well-respected status in the community. Have they obtained court orders, or court frauders? Are court frauders even valid? It required knowingly, and with foreknowledge, committing a crime. Frauders, which just so happened to be signed by the same well-documented, crime team judge. Or in this case, Judge This. Is Mr. Stengel only fighting for his kids, or is he also fighting for yours? You may hear some say the system works. To that, Mr. Stengel says, 1. Not when you have crooks, unconscionables and sociopaths running the system. 2. Not when honorable people are manipulated by the crooks, unconscionables and sociopaths. You may also hear, you can't fight City Hall. To which Mr. Stengel says, 1. Mr. Stengel is not fighting City Hall. 2. Rather, a handful of thugs, without a conscience, who conned, raped and pillaged City Hall. 3. Then using City Hall to continue to prey on the unsuspecting public. 4. And use City Hall as their shield, in order to more easily obtain more getaway drivers. They call them friends. 5. Which primary goal targets children. With so much documented evidence against them, they have no choice but to have a kill or be killed mentality. Forgetting about the full list and just using the short list, what would you do if caught committing these acts? What are your options? 1. Confess to all of your crimes. 2. Kill the messenger. Kill or be killed, which requires committing more crimes. the children. To a sociopath? Casualties of a divorce? Apparently, reporting crimes is a crime. Apparently, protecting the public, a job allegedly handled by the state of Maryland, is a crime. The state's attorney, Mr. Scott D. Schellenberger, and his commanded assistants, are well documented as assisting and forwarding the insane number of frauds, unknowingly allowing the predatory abuses of children, schools, and the wrongful involvement of many others, aka, the public, now spanning over 4 years and continues today. Maybe we should ask Mr. Scott D. Schellenberger, who is accepting paychecks to protect the public. Or better yet, maybe we should ask his children what their father really does to buy all those gifts. Or do we ask Mr. Scott D. Schellenberger the question, are you evil? Assisting evil? Or conned by evil? After all, do we know what information Mr. Schellenberger was provided or aware of? The short list of crimes has been completely ignored, let alone the long list provided years earlier, beginning in 2011. It is evident the state of Maryland and their top officials believe they are scuba diving, where a buddy system is a requirement. The fact of the matter is, if you are accepting paychecks to protect the public and are knowingly allowing predators to prey on the unsuspecting public, you are a criminal. However, if you are black and poor, in which case a marijuana joint or two could very well land you in jail. Is it just a coincidence, all, with some already listed, as there are well over a dozen, are all white? Is it also a coincidence the only judge that did the right thing was black? Go Baltimore, Maryland. Go Towson, Maryland. Go Maryland. Footnote, this is just a sampling of the then Governor Martin O'Malley administration. We will see what Governor Larry Hogan does to punish those street rats, a crime ring being handed to him on a platinum platter. Go Maryland. Go Baltimore, Maryland. Go Towson, Maryland. Go Maryland. Highlights from series number 2. Self-immunization fails. Working development research stage. Agreement. Pause to read. Minimum age of 18 required. First, a brief introduction to Bradford G. Carney, Miss Zaleski's attorney. Bradford G. Carney is not only a drug abuser and an alcoholic who drives and is a danger to others, but also a pathological liar and an unconscionable criminal. Mr. Carney's alcoholism and drug use is well known within the legal community. In fact, Bradford G. Carney does not even hide it, as noted in his own words, on November 29, 2012, to none other than Judge Judith Enza, his crime team member. 2 years, to the day, after Miss Zaleski filed her first, 100% fraudulent protective order.
I'm sorry, I'm loaded up on Valium and Oxycontin. It's really good stuff. It's great. Doesn't work. That's what I'm taking.
Just 1 day later, on November 30, 2012, again, to none other than Judge Judith Enza, his crime team member, and 2 years after, the fraud began with Miss Zaleski's first, 100% fraudulent protective order filing, Mr. Carney references his own expert, Mr. Feder, then confesses.
Because as Mr. Feder said, to ferret out the lie, you've got to do more work. And the more work I did, the more frustrating it became because I just kept coming up empty. Because as Mr. Feder said, to ferret out the lie, you've got to do more work. And the more work I did, the more frustrating it became because I just kept coming up empty.
He's right. It's all bullshit.
What happened on November 26, 2012, just 4 days before that confession? Judge Judith Enza, in an illegal act, refuses Mr. Stengel to even question Mr. Bradford G. Carney regarding his nearly $200,000 of fraud bills, which he is being asked to pay. Mr. Stengel would have destroyed Mr. Carney for an estimated 1 to 2 weeks. Enza knew that. Instead, Mr. Stengel does so in the miniseries. Mr. Stengel was then forced to hire an attorney.
I have a question for Your Honor, if you don't mind. In relation to Mr. Carney's bills, am I able to ask him questions in regards to his bills?
No.
No?
Before we get to the presentation, and since we are on November the 26th, 2012, it's important to be aware, the corrupt judge Judith Enza also refused Mr. Stengel call witnesses, for the same reason. This snapshot of Mr. Stengel's November the 26th, 2012, transcript directory, shows, those Mr. Stengel had evidence, they were not only conned and manipulated, by Miss Silisky, Bradford Carney and others, against Mr. Stengel and his children, some were sent to file false police reports. Many even noted in Mr. Carney's fraud bills, which Mr. Stengel was being asked to pay. It would have been game over. Enza knew that. It was this alienation tactic, used by this crime ring, which led to Mr. Stengel's mailings, evidencing crimes and abuses, on these very people. 2 years later, 4 years after this fraud began, these very people were further manipulated to assist in Mr. Stengel's wrongful incarceration, where several filed false police reports against their own best interest, which the corrupt Maryland State's Attorney's Office was fully aware of, and provided the documented crimes against many of these people, also well documented by Mr. Stengel, as was the corrupt Attorney Grievance Commission of Maryland. Take a closer look. Also noting, the fifth line down, are 3 rejected from boys' Latin school, therefore keeping them in the dark, who they continued to use and abuse, to this very day. The third line from the bottom, noting Swearen. Neil Swearen, who ignored the subpoena, then after being called while in court, came to court, and lied to Judge Thisenza, regarding who told him not to come. However, his testimony alone confirmed, at the very least, he paid Miss Silisky over $4,000, that he would admit to, which proves Miss Silisky's repeated zero income statements to the courts to be fraud. If any of these people who are being conned, then forced to remain there for future tasks, were your friends, son, daughter, cousin, aunt, uncle, children's school, the police, etc., 1. Would you want to know? 2. Would you tell them? 3. If it were you, would you want to know? Or, would you prefer Mr. Stengel remain quiet, in which case, you would be siding with this crime ring? Chocolate, or vanilla? Choose. There are hundreds, however, you can see this small sampling pile of victims. Mr. Stengel's minor children are on the bottom of the big and ever-growing pile. Mr. Stengel made it very clear to this crime ring, and also documented in his mailings. He will never stop trying to protect his children. That will simply never happen. They will need to kill this father. The observations of adult professionals in their specialized fields, given the task of fighting reality at all costs, and the ways they go about it, by itself is worth the price of admission. Although they collectively make it appear they are arguing with Mr. Stengel, in reality, they are arguing with reality, and their own words and actions, in the face of reality. August the 27th, 2014, years later, the crime ring is still at it. As Mr. Stengel, also noted in his mailings, has all their balls duct taped together, waiting for justice. The corrupt judge Judith Enza, on pages number 61 to 62, in fact is reciting one portion of one of Mr. Stengel's mailings, which is directed at herself.
How sweet it is! I learned some things today that I did not know. I've taken a look at Defense Exhibit number 8, which says at the bottom, stay tuned, free research seminar, concentration example with Judge Tiss. It's spelled Judgetice, Enzer's Lies, and more coming. I did not know anything about that until this morning. I also have Defense Exhibit 6, page 2 of 3, 4 paragraphs down on Mr. Stengel's post. It says, then there are other attorneys and judges. One in particular is not a judge, but a Judge Tiss. I created that name for one simple reason. A judge abides by facts, laws, truths, evidence, and such. A Judge Tiss creates their own facts, laws, truths in the face of opposing evidence.
We continue with page number 62, and on to page number 63, as Judge Thisenza continues reading her biography, which ends with psychotic responses.
It then says on page 3 of 3, the second full paragraph. So they involved a Maryland Circuit Court judge who ignored all the evidence, even testimony from an NSA employee, even ignored the confessions of abuse and serious crimes, and there are many, of the mother to help her buddies. Apparently this Judge Tiss, the one the title was created for, thinks she is scuba diving, which requires the buddy system. So what do? Document all of her lies and falsities, in direct opposition to what she has presented and told. What do you do when a judge is a sociopath? Good question. So it would appear, since Exhibit 8 refers to Judge Tiss Enzer's lies, that the unnamed Judge Tiss in Exhibit 6 might also refer to me. I mention this only to say, clearly on the record, that I have no animosity towards Mr. Stengel. So I've learned today that he's accused me of lying, and he also mentioned that he filed a grievance against me. I didn't know anything about that until today either. I just want to make clear that I have said on the record that these revelations today do not in any way affect my ability to be impartial in this case.
This is true, since you can't change something that does not exist. Apparently, she hasn't been listening to herself over the previous, almost 4 years. Who can blame her? However, let's continue to listen, as we go to page number 65.
Mr. Stengel is the kind of person that I would have to be very careful with my words.
A few lines down, on page number 65, we listen to Psychosis.
He has posted a video with Mrs. Selesky. Apparently you would like me to find that that's not so bad because we don't see her face. There's nothing in that order that says that she would have to be somehow identifiable. He has posted a video with Mrs. Selesky. Apparently you would like me to find that that's not so bad because we don't see her face. There's nothing in that order that says that she would have to be somehow identifiable.
Referring to this video, which action followed Miss Selesky, upstairs on the bed, both fists clenched, arms at 90-degree angles, and whacking herself in the head, very hard. Kapow. Whack. Kapow. Whack. After 5 or 6, and Mr. Stengel unable to get her to stop, he went downstairs, where she followed him, when he asks why she was whacking herself in her head. All provided to this crime ring, very early on. Watch.
Ever. You don't even let me, because that's what it feels like. So you I'm going to show you. Mark! No!
Then, seconds later, what she was doing to her own head upstairs, she was doing to her own chest, heard from that same camera in the other room, almost 20 feet away. Very hard. Watch.
I'm throwing daggers in my fucking heart!
The realities, and what is best for the children, were simply not going to be a good revenue stream. But hey, if they just switch the names, lots of money will roll in. The children, not their problem, just their revenue source. You won't find any mention of any of this, or anything else, by any of them, anywhere. Just their pre-designed fraud scam, and false allegations against Mr. Stengel, which Mr. Carney confessed to, years earlier, was all bullshit. We continue on page number 65, and on to page number 66, with yet more impartiality. Due to Mr. Stengel's mailings, and as predicted in his mailings, a fraudulent restraining order was requested, by further lying to the courts. The obvious, noted in his mailings, as they have little options. The corrupt judge Tiss Enzer, in fact is complaining, their illegal and fraudulent court order, court fraude, where they attempt to immunize their crime team from being exposed, and she feels being ignored is a problem. Guess who signs the order? Therefore, immunizing her crime team and herself from being exposed. Evidenced by this one short presentation, Fraud Enzer attempts, and fails. So upset, she continues her personal, impartial, no animosity attacks on Mr. Stengel. Because, she must choose her words carefully.
He posted about the divorce, and by that I mean his unhappiness with the expert's opinion, with Mr. Berg's activities, with Mr. Carney. I mean, absent the divorce proceeding, Mr. Berg would have no connection with his children. None. It's only because of the divorce. So his postings arise out of the divorce. He was not to post anything about the divorce, and he chose to do so. Now, there's been this undercurrent this morning about psychological evaluation with respect to a criminal case. I wasn't provided with a copy of that. I'm not asking to see a copy of it. There are no doubt mental health issues involved.
Where do we begin with her carefully crafted words? 1. Mr. Stengel's unhappiness with the expert's opinion. AKA, crime team member, Dr. Catherine Killeen, the psychotic psychologist. 1A, who refused to provide her contractually obligated report regarding her bullshit psych evaluation for outside third-party review. 1B, who refused to provide any information on her own evaluation of Miss Silisky, or report for outside review. 1C, who refused to be cross-examined, with the assistance of the crime team and the mole, Robert Wayne Lazaro. 1D, who refused to obtain Miss Silisky's medical records, which notes long-term mental illness. 1E, who falsely opined for other doctors, as will be seen in the timeline. 1F, as does Judge This Judith Enza, as will be seen very shortly. 2. Mr. Stengel's false incarceration then required him to have another psychological evaluation done by an independent source, chosen by the state. 2A. Judge This Enza mentions it, and in reality, is asking not to see it. Why? 2B. Simple. It flies in the face of what her crime ring member and psychotic psychologist, Dr. Catherine Killeen, and her fraudulent, pre-designed, colluded, perjurious false swearing, as Mr. Leon W. Berg, knowingly, and with foreknowledge, suborned the well over 100 counts of false statements, which had Mr. Stengel lose 100% communications with his children, and them to their father. Their only source of sanity, and normal alienation, is their number one tool, as well documented by Mr. Stengel. The same goes for those witnesses, really victims, keeping them alienated from the crimes perpetrated upon them, which they continued. 3. We can't skip over the psychotic, Judge This Judith Enza's, impartial, no animosity attacks on Mr. Stengel. 3A, and provides her own expert opinion. 3B, goes even further than you will ever hear any expert state, no doubt, mental health issues. No doubt. Really. Because, it appears, she is kin to an all-inclusive resort. Note, this psychotic Judge This, true to her own personality disorder, where a conscience never existed, where these types, as well documented by Mr. Stengel, show allegations equals confessions. Therefore, we appreciate and accept Judge This Judith Enza's confession. But, hey, as long as they obtain fraudulent orders, you should allow your children to be further abused and forced into their designed world of delusion. After all, it's profitable. An estimated 4% of the population do not possess a conscience. An estimated 1% of the population stands up for the rest of the population. This group happens to be top-tier 4%ers. What are the odds they would run into someone like Mr. Stengel? Well, 1%. Even noted in Miss Silisky's own writings. Even so, unconscionables can't stop. That's what a conscience would do. Not all unconscionables are at the levels of this group. To make matters worse, these extremely high-level unconscionables are working together, as well documented by Mr. Stengel. They will do whatever, and involve whomever. They will go down in flames, and take people with them. Not their problem, nor their concern. Let's continue.
Testified that Mr. Stengel was spending up to 6 hours a day chronicling what he thought were Ms. Silisky's discretions and indiscretions. I am obviously not a mental health expert, and not even an expert. I'm not involved. But I'm telling you, I know the man's mentally ill because I heard what the doctor testified, and I don't even remember, Mr. Rudo, if you were involved in the case at that time, but the defense that was brewing to Mr. Stengel's completely inappropriate behavior was, please don't hold me accountable, because I've been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. That was brewing. It never really came to be, but what I will tell you is this. I don't have a shred of evidence before me. Well, let me back up. Dr. Lyon testified that Mr. Stengel's been diagnosed with schizophrenia and compulsive disorder, and he said, his words, Mr. Stengel requires heavy-duty treatment. Now, I don't have any evidence in front of me to suggest that Mr. Stengel is incompetent.
What you are witnessing is extreme, highly psychotic behavior. It's a white noise bonanza. Completely missed, if untrained. Especially, if just hearing it on the fly. In a mere 2 pages of psychotic rants, what is this high-level psychotic saying, or spewing, about the children's father? This is a family court, right? Initial note. The psychotic evil judge this Judith Cienza notes she must choose her words carefully. Obviously, not for the sake of the law, rather personal reasons. 1. Mr. Stengel posted video of a psychotic person in action, who for profits, the children were forced to live with, and without any communication with their father, as they were force-fed lies about their father, in direct opposition to their own realities, of both their mother and their father. 2. It's against their frauder, which their mole, Robert Lazaro, crafted and organized, as he did others, like the R Strikers bullshit. Order, and yet others. Very disturbing, others. Note. David R. Stryker, a T. Rowe Price top-tier executive. 3. Then, Psychosis states,
There's nothing in that order that says that she would have to be somehow identifiable.
Huh? The governor should raise the bar for what qualifies someone to handle murder cases. Otherwise,
There's nothing in that order that says that she would have to be somehow identifiable. Mr. Stengel is the kind of person that I would have to be very careful with my words.
Then Psychosis states,
His unhappiness with the expert's opinion.
Note, she meant to say, crime ring, unhappiness, go figure. 5. Then mentions just a few of the crime ring members, then Psychosis states,
Absent the divorce proceeding, Mr. Berg would have no connection with these children.
no shit, moron. Which is worse, falsely calling someone mentally ill, or correctly calling someone a psychotic evil moron? Reality, if not for the fraud, false swearing, false filings, perjury times ridiculous, subornation of perjury times ridiculous, child abuses, alienation scams, extortion, racketeering, wrongfully involving people, wrongfully involving schools, psychological warfare on children and community. Just to name a few, this psychotic judge would not be writing any of this. Therefore, it doesn't derive out of the divorce, per se. That's just your vehicle for criminal activity. It derives out of your crime ring's criminal activity, and one's First Amendment right and duty to inform the public, especially the ones directly being victimized. Right, Mr. Scott D. Schellenberger, the Maryland state's attorney who authorizes these abuses, then jails for reporting the abuses perpetrated on the public. 6. Then, Psychosis states,
There's been this undercurrent this morning about psychological evaluation with respect to a criminal case.
Criminal case. The one we just destroyed. Please continue. 6a. Then, Psychosis states,
I wasn't provided with a copy of that. I'm not asking to see a copy of it. Mr. Stengel is the kind of person that I would have to be very careful with my words.
Because, 6b, she was just told about it, via ex parte communications. 6c, Judge Vicenza is not interested in that one. The state-ordered one. The independent one. Hell no. Note, evidence of ex parte communications. Kapow. There is this undercurrent. Translated equals ex parte communications. We appreciate your confession.
Mr. Stengel is the kind of person that I would have to be very careful with my words.
Why not interested? Well, that one is not favorable to their crime ring. Otherwise, it would have been officially and legally provided. And this psychotic judge would be spewing that as well. We did say, kapow. Good. Bang bang bang. Apparently, she enjoys riding the delusional trolley. In fact, that state-ordered psychological evaluation report validates your corruption, stating, Mr. Stengel's claims have merit. Do we need to repeat that? Therefore, that state-ordered psych evaluation not only flies in the face of your crime team member, the psychotic psychologist, Dr. Catherine Killeen's designed and coordinated bullshit, It also properly directs the focus to you, O Psychotic One, and your crime ring. It too destroys, murders and kills you all, with reality. Bang bang. 7. Dr. Fraudenza completes her own psychological evaluation, as psychosis states,
There are no doubt mental health issues involved. Mr. Stengel is the kind of person that I would have to be very careful with my words.
Note, correct. I believe you listed some of their names above. You just need to add several more, and your own. In which case, you're, no doubt, although generally unprecedented in the psychology field, in your case, is correct. 8. What Mr. Stengel thought were Miss Zaleski's indiscretions. Thought? Indiscretions? Sounds like Mr. Leon W. Berg's fraudulent responses to the Corrupt Grievance Commission. Therefore, Judge this Judith Enza doesn't feel any of Miss Zaleski's actions rise to the level of indiscretion. Surely, many she has convicted and thrown in prison for much less would love to hear that, along with the mountains of opposing evidence. Note, although Dr. Lyon has learned things since then, you're repeating that, which you have known all along, is telling. One good thing that came out of this case was Dr. Lyon, a brilliant man, learned things in this case, a supposed divorce case, which were unimaginable, even to him. The key word is, learned. Besides the reality, he is a brilliant man. The fact he is still learning is what confirms his brilliance. Unlike Dr. Fraudenza, who has the answers before the questions are presented. Regardless, that state-ordered psych evaluation both disagrees with your fraud, and at the same time, nails you for it. That deserves more than a kapow. That deserves a... That's what is used to describe being destroyed, murdered, and killed with reality. Not literal, but provides the point. Something you will be familiar with when going over the spread the fraud sheets. As they are destroyed, over and over, and over. We move on. 9. Then, psychosis states,
I am obviously not a mental health expert, and not even an expert.
10. Then, psychosis states,
I'm fairly not involved.
That's like saying the conductor of the train is not involved in the train moving. Oh, Psychotic One. 11. Then, psychosis ends the same, non-expert sentence, and states,
But I'm telling you, I know the man's mentally ill.
where she becomes an expert, again. And opines, no doubt.
Mr. Stengel is the kind of person that I would have to be very careful with my words.
Which is true, if you're a crook. 12. Then, psychosis states,
The defense that was brewing to Mr. Stengel's completely inappropriate behavior was, please don't hold me accountable, because I've been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder.
which takes us to another crime team member, Robert Wayne Lazaro, who extorted over $80,000 to give Mr. Stengel's children away to someone he himself said was a psychopath. The entire brewing mental illness bullshit. Was Robert Wayne Lazaro running his part of their crime team scam, as he has many, well documented? Fact, Dr. Lyon and Mr. Stengel decided on using 5, 6 or so videos to show Miss Zaleski is not mentally fit, will lie at will, under oath or not, and is violent and unpredictable. Mr. Scamman Robert Wayne Lazaro, aka The Mole, ran his, I'm the attorney, this is what must go. Fraud. Fraud. Misrepresentation. Fraud. Fraud. This, while he was president of the Bar Association. That should give you an idea why they wanted this slug to be a judge. However, he would automatically pull the vault to judge this. 13. Then, psychosis falsely states,
Dr. Lyon testified that Mr. Stengel's been diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Note, really. Because the transcripts disagree. Could it be that state-ordered psych evaluation is simply proving itself accurate? Is that what this psychotic judge this is up in arms about? Just like her crime team member, Dr. Killeen, falsely testifies for other doctors and their records. Go team, go! Besides, the amount of time goes to the enormous amount of crimes, abuses, lies, etc., by several people, then yourself, not just one, as it began. You do the math. Fortunately, Dr. Lyon himself learned things along the way, which quite frankly, are unimaginable. So, thanks for bringing that point up as well. 14. Then, Psychosis states,
I don't have any evidence in front of me to suggest that Mr. Stengel is incompetent.
15. Apparently, schizophrenia isn't evidence for her. 16. Even though it's false and defamatory, which to evil is normal, she only has use for it on one side. On this side, she knows nothing. Where she becomes Schultzy from Hogan's Heroes. Note, it's like volcanic lava of psychosis, forever flowing.
Mr. Stengel is the kind of person that I would have to be very careful with my words.
We end this portion with a few questions for the esteemed, world-renowned Dr. Enza. How many Mr. Stengels are there? A1. Take your time and consult with team expert, Dr. Fraudlein. B. Which one of the Mr. Stengels is responsible for your alleged actions? C. Which one of the Mr. Stengels sent the mailings in late 2013? The mailings that stated Mr. Carney would obtain a fraudulent order, aka fraud, to prevent being exposed. Which he did. The mailings that stated Judge Thisenza would be recused. Which happened. Apparently, one of the Mr. Stengels is very good at telling the future. And last, but never least, D. What about that state-ordered psych evaluation? D1. Which of the Mr. Stengels was evaluated by the state? Note, Mr. Stengel's data, no doubt, isn't going away. It will be there when this crime ring goes to bed. It will be there when this crime ring wakes up. And when they eat, and especially when they take a crap. Which is what the data really is. No matter how hard they push and push, it will forever remain inside. Final note, Judge Thisenza. No need to answer those questions now. Wait until you are put under oath. Bang bang bang. Goes reality. Do you have any idea what Mr. Stengel has actually documented? Because he has known for years. And so have all of them. Forcing them all to play that crazy card as it's virtual. Just like you can't tell what they really are. You will learn to their dismay.
Sorry kids, the money train left the station. We understand you love your daddy. However, we have fraud businesses to run. Whatever your own experiences are, and have been, you must come to learn are delusional. Our information that does not match your own experiences, is to be your reality. Remember kids, we are the experts. Now, get the hell back in line and behave.
Good stuff. Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
Good stuff. Who do you think you are?
You are a bum.
How much is just one memory worth? How much is just one missed memory worth?
State of Maryland versus Mark Stengel. Case number K14-0997. In the District Court, for Baltimore County. Memorandum of State Agreement. The defendant, Mark Stengel, has been charged in criminal case number K14-0997. The case charges the defendant with 1 count of stalking and 2 counts of harassment. It is agreed that the state will enter a stet to the case in its entirety. In exchange for the entry of the stet, the defendant will agree to abide by the conditions listed below. The state further agrees to reopen the stet and enter a null pros after a period of 18 months, as long as the defendant has not violated any of the conditions. The defendant understands that the state will reopen the stet and proceed to trial, should the defendant violate any of the conditions of the stet. Conditions of the stet: the defendant will continue with his current treatment with Dr. John Lyon. The defendant will submit bi-monthly reports to the state's attorney's office that indicate that he is in compliance with the treatment. The report by his psychiatrist need not detail the specifics of the treatment, but merely affirm that the defendant is in compliance with his or her directives, including taking any prescribed medications. The defendant agrees to have no contact with the following individuals and businesses. This would include, but not be limited to contact in writing, by phone, by electronic communication, via social media, print or broadcast media, or through any third party at Mr. Stengel's directive. Susan Sileski, aka Susan Stengel. Sally Friedberg Sileski. The staff of Elkridge Estates. John Wayne Brown. Peggy Sanji. Pat Roop. Betty Williams. Ron, and Lynn Rowe. The Honorable Raymond Team Me, and Loretta Team Me. Dr. Martin Swartzberg. Jonathan Seville, Home and Business. Michael, and Catherine Barrison. Neil Swerin. Scott S. Grau. Southern Trust Mortgage, LLC. Amy Whitten. Miller's Minuteman Press. Joe D., and Jason Marlowe. Mark Schwartzman. Glen Burnie Transmission. Kevin Rittingham. Mount Royal Printing Company. David Applefeld, Esquire. Cheryl Brandt. Gina, and Ron Gallahue. Catherine Stevens. Karen Spellman Ash. Eileen, and Jonathan Rosenberg. Marcy, and David Treese. Amy, and Eric Sullivan. Hillary, and Jason Siegel. Karen, and Rob Bark. Kathy, and Harvey Oken. Mindy Lipsy. Tybalt, and Paola Favre. Alex Favre. Scott, and Catherine Kirkin. Deneen Gallant Noraying, and Kenneth Noraying. Kara, and Jay Cohen. Tammy Bensky. Holly, and Jeff Musgrove. Alice, and Maury Garden, Esquire. Vicky Moore. Dr. Michael Schweitzer, and Dr. Dana Silver. The Sinai Pediatric Clinic Professional Staff. Brian Lubart, and Betsy Bender. Augie, and Trish Backram-Mazelli. Sean Costello-Woolley, Ph.D., and Brian Woolley. Rebecca Midges Karakis, and Jose Karakis. Mark Asher. Marcy Burt, and Paul Burt, Esquire. Rachel, and David Simon. Michael Stockman. Katie, and Michael Thomas. Rocco Tenaglia. Chris, and Euclides Santiago. Lucas Santiago. Sarah, and Mark Blattner. Janet, and Fred Schutzman. Steve, and Mary Friedberg. Sarah Friedberg. Ian, and Amanda Friedberg Case. Edward, and Joanne Abrahams. Matthew Robert Sileski. John, and Beth Friedberg. Jessica Friedberg. Nicole Friedberg. Andy, and Kelly Weinberg. Charlotte Davis. Amy, and Dr. Milan Wister. Jennifer Scandora. Jean Campbell. Allison, and John Friedman, Esquire. Andy Meister. Cheryl McCann. Teresa Hall. Elizabeth, and Dr. Alan Dackey. Megan, and Edward Kenny. Louise, and Bill Wright. Susie, and Scott Stevens. The religious faculty, and professional staff, of Temple Oheb Shalom. Ina Basefeld, M.A., ATR, B.C., C.P.C., L.C.P.A.T. Peggy Kolodny, M.A., ATR, B.C., L.C.P.A.T. All employees of HANA. All employees of the Associated. All employees of the Jewish Community Center, Owings Mills, and Park Heights. Brad Carney, Esquire. 92 Laurie Schroeder, Salon Laurie. 93 The professional staff of Salon Laurie. 94 Stephanie, and Brian Kagan. 95 The faculty, professional staff, and student body of the Boys Latin School of Baltimore. 96 Garrison Forest School, faculty, and professional staff. 97 The Friends School of Baltimore, faculty, and professional staff. 98 The Portland, Oregon, Jewish Federation. 99 Sabrina Campbell. 100 Florence, and Jean Bernard Gaudiux. 101 Cynthia Zarconi. 102 Susan, and Ted Gross. 103 The Stewart, and Karen Zolotoro family. 104 Jenny Gloss. 105 Kelly Hagan, and Arthur Kronk. 106 Kimberly Moorhead. 107 John Emily Luoma. 108 Betsy, and David Ostreicher, Esquire. 109 The family of Betsy and David Ostreicher. 110 James Parks, 3rd. 111 Karen Pelton. Any contact with anyone on the above list may also be grounds for harassment charges, as these individuals and entities do not wish for the defendant to have any contact with them. The parties on the list wish for the prohibition on contact to be permanent, unless the defendant is notified otherwise. The defendant agrees not to post, publish, email or disseminate in any way any information, photographs or videos, whether disparaging or otherwise, about his ex-wife, Susan Sileski, A.K. Susan Stengel, or his children, Alex and Maya Stengel. This would include the details of their divorce, videos taken prior to their divorce, emails or other documents exchanged prior to their divorce, and after their divorce, and any documentation that was related to their divorce hearing, or subsequent hearings. Jill Savage, Assistant State's Attorney, for Baltimore County. Matthew Rudo, Attorney for Mark Stengel. Mark Stengel, Defendant.
Note, Mr. Stengel outright rejected the state's state offer.
The Boys Latin School of Maryland. Office of the Headmaster. January 21, 2015. Dear Mr. Stengel, I am writing in regards to your ongoing interaction with members of the Boys Latin community. As you are well aware, you were banned from campus for your belligerent behavior in 2011. Over the last 18 months, you have engaged in a variety of hard copy and electronic mailings that were disconcerting at best. I respectfully request any and all legal protection that precludes you from communicating with any member of the Boys Latin community, faculty and staff, parents and students, alumni, and trustees. By communication, I mean not only written, email, text and phone, but communication through third parties and social media. Your failure to comply with this basic request may lead to a request for a civil peace order against you or the filing of criminal harassment charges. Additionally, Mr. Stengel, you are not allowed onto our campus for any reason whatsoever. If you do come to campus, you will be trespassing onto private property and the authorities will be contacted. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Sincerely yours, Christopher J. Post.
February 3, 2015. Mr. Christopher J. Post, Headmaster, the Boys Latin School of Maryland, 822 West Lake Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland 21210. Dear Mr. Post, the State of Maryland, by Assistant State's Attorney Jill Savage, served on my client, Mr. Mark Stengel, in open court before the Honorable Robert E. K. Hill, Jr., your letter of January 21, 2015. It is my legal opinion that the content of your letter may violate Maryland law in that, under threat of criminal and civil prosecution, it forbids Mr. Stengel's contact with any member of the Boys Latin community, faculty and staff, parents and students, alumni and trustees. For your convenience, I am attaching your letter of January 21 along with one of 91 others presented to Mr. Stengel at court. You should know that all of the other letters contain the exact same language as the letter of January 7, 2015, that I have attached. Coincidentally, the 91 letters prepared by Miss Siliski contain the precise language contained in your letter of January 21. That language is as follows.
By communication, I mean not only written, email, text and phone, but communication through third parties and social media. Your failure to comply with this basic request may lead to a request for a civil peace order against you or the filing of criminal harassment charges.
Mr. Post, it is very clear that Miss Siliski has enlisted and solicited her friends to sign letters on her behalf, as she has solicited you, as the headmaster of the prestigious Boys Latin School of Maryland. I say this because it seems clear that you have chosen to place the exact same threatening language in your letter to Mr. Stengel as is contained in the others. I find it difficult that you are authorized to speak on behalf of any member of the Boys Latin community as you have defined it to include the thousands of individuals who have matriculated and graduated from your school. Curiously, after threatening Mr. Stengel that he should, in essence, have no contact with any person with any relation to the Boys Latin School, you end your letter by advising him to.
Please let me know if you have any questions.
Question. How does Mr. Stengel let you know anything without risking a criminal charge? You accuse Mr. Stengel in the initial paragraph of your letter of sending disconcerting hard copy and electronic mailings. Please provide me a complete listing of those documents to include the date of the last one received. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it appears that your letter of January 21, 2015, along with your refusal to allow Mr. Stengel to have contact with any school official regarding his son's academic and student records, is a direct violation of CUMA. If I do not hear from you, I will promptly notify the Maryland Department of Education so that it might take whatever corrective action it deems necessary. Very truly yours, Richard M. Karseski.
January 7, 2015. Dear Mr. Stengel, the purpose of my writing is to inform you to immediately cease and desist from all communication with me of any kind. By communication, I mean not only written, email, text and phone, but communication through third parties and social media. Your failure to comply with this basic request may lead to a request for a civil peace order against you, or the filing of criminal harassment charges. Thank you for your cooperation.
1 Sally Sileski. 2 Susan Sileski. January 7, 2015. Dear Mr. Stengel, the purpose of my writing is to inform you to immediately cease and desist from all communication with me of any kind. By communication, I mean not only written, email, text and phone, but communication through third parties and social media. Your failure to comply with this basic request may lead to a request for a civil peace order against you, or the filing of criminal harassment charges. Thank you for your cooperation. Susan Sileski. 3 Janet Schutzman. 4 Fred Schutzman. 5 Jessica Friedberg. 6 John Friedberg. 7 Nicole Friedberg. 8 Beth Friedberg. 9 Paul Friedberg. 10 Sarah Friedberg. 11 Steve Friedberg. 12 Mary Friedberg. 13 Madeline Krause, MD. 14 Douglas Friedberg. 15 Spencer Friedberg. 16 Judge Raymond Team Me. 17 Loretta Team Me. 18 Pat Roop. 19 Peggy Gilbert Sanji. 20 Ronald Gallahue. 21 Regina Gallahue. 22 Emily Gallahue. 23 Connor Gallahue. 24 Claire Gallahue. 25 Jonathan Seville. 26 Cheryl McCann. 27 Catherine Stevens. 28 Marcia Treese. 29 David Treese. 30 Austin Treese. 31 Kendall Treese. 32 Amy Wister. 33 Milan Wister. 34 Kimberly Moorhead. 35 Andrew Weinberg. 36 Kelly Weinberg. 37 Michael Stockman. 38 Adam Stockman. 39 Betsy Ostreicher. 40 David Ostreicher, Esquire. 41 Kevin Ostreicher. 42 Zachary Ostreicher. 43 Brandon Ostreicher.
January 7, 2015. Dear Mr. Stengel, the purpose of my writing is to inform you to immediately cease and desist from all communication with me of any kind. By communication, I mean not only written, email, text and phone, but communication through third parties and social media. Your failure to comply with this basic request may lead to a request for a civil peace order against you, or the filing of criminal harassment charges. Thank you for your cooperation.
44 Susan Gross. 45 Ted Gross. 46 Mindy Lipsy. 47 Jason Marlowe. 48 Jody Marlowe. 49 James Parks, 3rd. 50 Allison Friedman. 51 Dana Silver, MD. 52 Michael Schweitzer, MD. 53 Justin Schweitzer. 54 Noah Schweitzer. 55 Ina Basefeld, MA, ATR, BC, CPC, LCPAT. 56 Peggy Kolodny, MA, ATR, BC, LCPAT. 57 Mark Blattner. 58 Sarah Blattner. 59 Amy Whitten. 60 Trish Backer Mazzelli. 61 Ogie Mazzelli. 62 Mark Schwartzman, Glen Burnie Transmission. 63 Karen Schwartzman. 64 Jennifer Roebuck. 65 Richard Roebuck. 66 Eileen Shear Rosenberg. 67 Jonathan Rosenberg. 68 Kevin Brittingham, MT Royal Printing Company. 69 Neil Swerin, Southern Trust Mortgage. 70 Scott S. Grau, Southern Trust Mortgage. 71 Stuart Zolo Toro. 72 Victoria Smith. 73 Kathy Oken. 74 Harvey Oken, Esquire. 75 Kate E. Thomas. 76 Elizabeth Dacu. 77 Alan Dacu, MD. 78 Rachelle Simon. 79 David Simon. 80 Chris Santiago. 81 Euclides Santiago. 82 Lucas Santiago. 83 Amy Sullivan. 84 Eric Sullivan. 85 Brian Lubart. 86 Sean Costello Woolley, Ph.D. 87 Catherine Barrison. 88 Rabbi Stephen Fink, Temple Oheb Shalom. 89 Hannah Staff. 90 Michelle Gordon, The Associated. 91 Lowry Schroeder, Salon Lori. 92 Christopher Post on behalf of Olive Boys Latin School. Deneen Gallant Noring.
Play. Disc number 10.